Chapter 1383. Second year class 7. According to the system, it definitely wasn't an outstanding class. The next morning, she was wearing a large red elk coat and a gray plaid skirt, heading out early to get her hair cut. The stylist who cut her hair was very young, but he was already in the position of director. He circled around her before rubbing his chin and saying, "This can't be fixed?" Question mark. Luo Qingshun knit her brows and looked up. "What do you mean?" "Beauty, your hair is really bad. Basically, you need to do a comprehensive treatment to be able to restore the normal quality of your hair." The stylist seriously analyzed her. "No matter what, it will take about half a year." Luo Qingshun knit her brows. She couldn't go to school like this. Wouldn't that be giving others a chance to slap her face? "Is there a way to quickly get my hair back to normal?" "Yes." "What?" "Cut it off." It had to be said, the stylist in this hairdresser was quite reliable. At least his method did sound like the best method, and it didn't waste money. In the end, her hair was cut below her ears with a bit of curling. Her bangs were light bangs that gave people a feeling of being very young. "Do you feel like you've changed into a different person?" The stylist carefully finished her hair and revealed a satisfied smile as he looked at his work. Luo Qingshun's lips curled slightly, looking very satisfied. The previous host was very white, but the heavens cared for her. Years of drinking didn't make her skin bad. After cutting off her head of colorful hair, she found that she had been reborn. With the fresh short hair and the large red coat, she looked like a high school student. She was like a completely different person compared to the original host who sang in the bar. She wondered if that clean young man would exclaim at today's concert. She was suddenly looking forward to his expression after seeing her. At 6 in the evening, and Yu Sheng was waiting for her at the entrance with 2 tickets in his hand. But before she could come, Liang Bingbing came first. "Isn't this school honkin'?" She wore a beige dress and a candy-colored scarf. She waved and walked to his side with a bright smile. He nodded faintly and didn't respond too much. In front of the girls in school, he always looked indifferent. Everyone thought that he was such a young man, polite, humble, gentle, and elegant. But no one knew what kind of demon lived in his body. Is school hunkin' waiting for someone? Liang Bingbing could naturally feel the other party's indifference, and a faint trace of displeasure appeared in her heart. As for Yu Sheng going to the concert tonight, she already knew about it. She just didn't know who he was watching the concert with until she accidentally heard Xia Qing Ro talking to her mother on the phone. She knew that the one accompanying Yu Sheng to the concert was no one else but the dirty person in the eyes of a superior girl like her. Therefore, before she came, she asked her cousin to do something for her. She didn't care about the matter of $2,000, but if this little girl wanted to be with Yu Sheng, she definitely wouldn't agree. That kind of little delinquent girl who was filthy to the bones in society. How could she be favored by the school hunk? She was the school flower of the affiliated high school. Why couldn't she stand beside the school hunk and become his girlfriend? Chapter 1384. At the same time, Luo Qingshun received a text from Zhao Jinxian. The content was very simple. "The bar is lacking people tonight. I'll give you 3 times your salary. As long as you come, I won't care about the matter of the $2,000. At the end of the text, he even added a blood-dripping knife emoji. It seemed like if she didn't listen, the big shots of society were planning on getting rid of her. But even if they wanted to get rid of her, they should see if the one standing here was still the Luo Qingshun from before. Luo Qingshun gave a shrug as she revealed a smile of disdain. She took a taxi to the entrance of the concert. At the entrance of the concert, Liang Bingbing kept talking, and Yu Sheng only gave a few perfunctory replies. He slightly knit his brows, clearly not in a good mood. "School honkin', the concert is about to begin. How about the 2 of us go and see it?" Liang Bingbing raised her right hand to pull his wrist. "My friend isn't here yet." In Liang Bingbing's eyes, Luo Qingshun, who loved money, wouldn't miss the chance to triple her salary. Everyone knew that money was always the most important thing in her heart. "This classmate, do you not understand what I'm saying?" And Yu Sheng's brows twitched, and his soft voice became a bit cold. He looked at her and softly said, "I'm waiting for a friend." He naturally knew that this person was surnamed Liang Bingbing, but he didn't have a good impression of her. It wasn't just because she did childish things again and again. It was also because Luo Qingshun appeared in his life because of the deal he made with her. He didn't like this feeling because in his heart, he didn't want this to be a deal. On a certain night, he had fantasized about it. Perhaps she was waiting for 30 days because she liked him. This was a fantasy that made his heart ache when he thought about it too much. I know. Liang Bingbing gave a proud snort before saying in an unwilling voice, "You're waiting for that little punk girl. It's a pity that she won't be coming." Luo Qingshun was a poor little girl. How could she give up 3 times her salary for an Yusheng? How could the kind of person who would spend 30 days doing such a shameful thing for 2,000 yuan come? And Yusheng heard this and tightly knit his brows. "What do you mean?" "Nothing." Liang Bingbing shrugged and said, "School hunkin', just listen to me. You're the school hunk. You're not from the same world as those delinquent girls." Do you know what my cousin said about her? He said that even he thought she was dirty. I might be in the same world as everyone in this world, but only you. He gave a light snort. His eyes flashed with an ice-cold gaze that had never appeared on campus. He looked at her and said word by word, "You will never be in the same world as me." Liang Bingbing looked into his eyes and took a step back in fear. That pair of originally gentle and clean eyes, at this moment, seemed to have transformed into the emissary of hell, staring at him with a dim light in their depths. "You," Liang Bingbing pursed her lips in a panic. "You don't need to say this. I know your family situation." And Yu Shang gave a cold laugh when he heard this and looked at her. "My family situation is unrelated to you." As soon as his voice fell, he put his hands in his pocket and turned to leave, but he stopped because of Liang Bingbing's words. Chapter 1385. The Yin family and the Liang family had business dealings, but they weren't on the same level. Rather, the Liang family was in charge. In a city, the two families had great business achievements. The elders were already familiar with each other, and with Liang Bingbing's persuasion, the elders readily accepted the marriage proposal. This matter was only mentioned a few days ago, so Yusheng didn't know about it. But at this moment, he didn't reveal any surprise or displeasure. His beautiful eyes were fixed on the girl who had just gotten out of the taxi, and his lips curled into a faint smile. He casually said, "You don't have the right to decide something like this." As soon as his voice fell, he walked in the direction of Luo Qingxin. Actually, when she first saw her, she wasn't 100% certain that it was her, because whether it was her hairstyle or her clothes, they were all earth-shattering. She didn't like it or not, but there was a special feeling of joy. "Cook," and Yusheng stood behind her and softly patted her back. He cleared his throat and said, "Miss Late." Luo Qingxun had just turned around and saw Yusheng waiting for her. She said with a smile, "Sorry, there was a traffic jam." He looked at Luo Qingxun, who was dressed like this, and his heart couldn't help rippling. The thick smoky makeup on her fair cheeks had faded away. Without any makeup, it was filled with collagen, looking very cute. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 20%. He pointed at her hair. There was a smile that was hard to hide as he seriously looked at her. "It doesn't look good?" She pursed her lips, and her cheeks were a bit hot. She casually pushed her hair behind her ear and said with a faint smile, "That hairdresser said that my original hair, it looks very good." He gently patted her head and said, "Let's go in." The big red elk, brown short skirt, short hair, and liguang. "All right." She nodded and followed behind him. At this moment, Liang Bingbing, who was standing not far away, was completely dumbstruck. She blinked and blinked again, looking at the reborn Luo Qingxun. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She was the punk-style girl in the bar who had been drinking hard liquor and wearing heavy makeup. She was the delinquent girl who was dressed in a punk style. All of a sudden, she turned into a fresh and cute. Bah, what could she do? No, absolutely not. She must find her brother and teach this so-called Luo Qingxun a lesson. Otherwise, the hatred in his heart would be unquenchable. Liang Bingbing, who was standing at the entrance of the cinema, angrily tore up the concert ticket and then dialed Zhao Jinxuan's number. Disco music came from the other end of the phone. The man on the phone seemed to have drunk too much as his voice was a little hoarse. "Good sister, why are you looking for your brother?" Cousin, I asked you to help me call that delinquent girl Luo Qingxian to work. Why didn't she go? She didn't come? Zhao Jinxian spat out a mouthful of saliva. Don't be anxious. I will definitely destroy her. Brothers, we can all work out our muscles today. You. Liang Bingbing's brows trembled as she tentatively asked, What do you want? After all, they were still students. If something really happened and the police were to be involved, it wouldn't be good. Chapter 1386. Liang Bingbing was a bit worried, but when she thought of Yu Shang going to the concert with her, her heart, liver, spleen, lungs, and kidneys were about to explode. Big brother, I'll leave it to you. She gritted her teeth as a sharp look appeared in her eyes. Beat her up for me, but don't hurt Yu Shang. He's my fiancé. Io. Zhao Jinxian broke out in laughter when he heard this. You're not even engaged yet, and you're already siding with an outsider. Cousin. Liang Bingbing stomped her foot with shy look on her face. Zhao Jinxian on the other side patted his chest as he promised. Relax, I definitely won't hurt your husband. Zhao Jinxian had some understanding of Luo Qingxian. She was just a poor little girl. It was very easy to teach her a lesson. Even if Yu Sheng wanted to protect her, he had to go to school, so there were plenty of chances. After the concert, she held the light stick in her hand with a faint smile on her lips. Actually, this kind of meeting was quite good. It wasn't early or late. It was like this youth belonged to her alone and wasn't related to the previous host. I'll send you back. And Yu Sheng took her hand out of habit as his eyes filled with gentleness. This was probably the first time he had the urge to protect someone. However, this impulse actually disturbed his mind at all times. I'll go back by myself. Luo Qingxian said, Do you have class tomorrow? He said with a nod, but I don't want to go. Luo Qingxian heard this and was a bit surprised why. If I said that it wasn't for you, would you believe me? His deep eyes lit up with a faint sparkle. The girl in front of him would never know that he was a bit nervous when he said this. It was a battle over the word love. Why did he feel like he was the one caught in it? Poochie. She gave a soft laugh, and her two dimples looked very good. Her clear eyes looked at him as she said, Of course I don't believe you. If the system told her that Yu Sheng's affection for her was 50%, she might have believed a bit. However, with just 20% favorable impression points in her hand, how could she trust him? He was stunned for a moment before he smiled bitterly and said, I can't do anything about you. The next second, he seemed to have thought of something as he looked at her and asked, Do you like singing in bars? I don't. Luo Qingxian shrugged and chuckled. If it weren't for life, who would like to work in a bar? When she said this, there was a feeling of depression in her heart. This feeling probably came from the original owner. She was a girl who grew up eating from hundreds of families, so there was always a sadness that no one could understand. After a long time, he stopped and looked at Luo Qingxian. If you don't like it, then don't go. He never had any prejudice against working in a bar. He only asked because he was worried about her safety. Oh. Luo Qingxian stopped with him and raised a brow. If I don't work, will you support me? All right. His reply was very quick, without any hesitation at all. Luo Qingxian was a bit surprised. She looked at him in a confused voice and asked, But you're still a student. Chapter 1387. On the way home that night, Luo Qingxian talked to Yu Sheng for a long time. He really wasn't the youth he seemed like on the surface. Before he was 10, Yu Sheng was cold and didn't care about anything around him. But when he was 10, his big brother was run over by a truck to save him, and he changed. He became as gentle as his big brother, no longer being cold. His parents had him learn how to take over the family business. Since then, these things were all taught by his big brother. In the eyes of his parents, he was mostly responsible for his big brother's death, so he had to take over the family business. After hearing these stories, Luo Qingxian could understand why Yu Sheng gave her such a strange feeling. Dual personality wasn't enough to describe Yu Sheng. At least he didn't just have two personalities. The next morning, after she washed up, she used 500 exchange points to exchange for a foreign exchange student certificate. As for the certifications given by the system, they could all be found on the internet. True is false. False is true. True is false. Why care so much? System notification. The host doesn't have much exchange points left. Please use them wisely. Luo Qingshun looked at her exchange points. She still had 1,500, but she didn't need that many exchange points, at most 500, because the 200,000 in her pocket was enough for her to become rich. What does the host want to do? I want to go to a very, very exciting place. The system seemed to know what she was thinking and directly replied. Small bets are fun. Large bets are harmful. Luo Qingshun gave a soft laugh and directly bought a ticket to Macau. She didn't have time to waste on things that weren't the main or side quests. Although this method of exchanging for money was violent, it was also the most direct. Coordinates knew how Ian. She carried a suitcase, disguised herself as a boy, and walked straight in. This was a large casino, and most of the people gathered here were betting on big or small, so she chose this option. Of course, she didn't immediately place a bet and seriously watched. Whispers could be heard all around her, all of which were information that would be helpful to her. The S country's little prince is here to play today. If we can win his money, it really would be incredible. I've heard that he already won 300 million tonight. He hasn't lost in big or small. So powerful. If you don't believe me, why don't you try? What's the bottom line? 100,000. Luo Qingshun stroked his fake beard and walked to the gambling table. He looked at the chips on the table and said, I'll bet 100,000 on the dice. The meaning of the surround dice was more complicated, but to put it simply, it was the middle number and the odds were very high. The so-called Little Prince of S Country was called Tom. Luo Qingshun looked at him in a relaxed manner. Shohan. On the gambling table, it meant that she was going all in, which meant that she was going all in. Tom wasn't stunned at all. He casually pressed down. Everyone followed Tom and bet on big. Of course, there were a few stubborn people who bet on small, but no one bet on group dice like Luo Qingshun. She roughly calculated the odds. As long as she won this round, she would get at least 5 million. Place your bets. The dealer pointed at the table and said, the dice are about to be opened. There was the sound of the dice rolling inside the goo. Luo Qingshun pursed her lips, and her lips curled slightly. Ding! 500 exchange points has been taken. Successfully exchanged for mind control. Chapter 1388. When Luo Qingshun used mind control, Mr. Tom's ears moved as if he felt something, but there was no clue on his face. Open. When the dealer picked up the dice goo, he was obviously stunned, but he immediately recovered his calmness and said, surround dice. At this moment, the sound of whispering spread in an instant. God, how is it possible? This young man won't cheat, right? I worship the boss. Tonight is the first failure of Little Prince Tom. I admire, Tom said in non-fluent Chinese. I don't know if this gentleman still plans to play next time. Of course. She raised her eyes and replied almost without hesitation. Since she came to Macau once, how could she go back after earning a few million? How could she develop smoothly into a rich generation when she went back? What do you want to bet? If I still bet on the surround dice, will you follow? I am Shohan. He crossed his hands and said what Luo Qingshun said just now with a look of entertainment and not caring about money. Hiss, the group of small gamblers around them all took a deep breath. The two people sitting opposite each other with such a large amount didn't feel the slightest tension, especially the young man in a gray suit. She looked young, but her whole body exuded an unusual momentum from ordinary people. Come on. Luo Qingshun put all the chips in her hand on the surround dice. She was not nervous, but she had a kind of appreciation for Tom in front of her. When the dice were spinning in the dice goo, Tom's ears still moved. Before the dice was opened, he pushed all the chips in front of him to Luo Qingshun and smiled. What's the name of this gentleman? Mr. L. Everyone looked at each other for a while, and they didn't react at all. After all, the dice hadn't been opened yet. How could they look like the winner and loser had already been decided? It is my Tom's fortune to meet such a master. Although his Chinese pronunciation was very strange, his pronunciation was very clear. Although Luo Qingshun didn't know much about this person's origin, at least she could be sure that he was quite familiar with this place. Open. The dealer couldn't wait to open the dice and said, surround dice. In the next second, he didn't forget to glance at Luo Qingshun and immediately said, this gentleman is really a master. As a dealer, He thought that Tom was already very good, but he didn't expect that there would be someone who was even better than Tom tonight. "You're too kind." Luo Qingshan nodded faintly. She converted all the chips into cash and deposited them directly into the bank. Before she left, Tom's assistant found her and respectfully handed her a business card. "Prince Tom asked me to tell you that if you encounter any difficulties, you can call him directly. This is his private number. Please keep it a secret." Luo Qingshan took the business card. She instantly felt the quality of the business card. She smiled faintly and nodded. "Then I'll have to trouble Mister to convey to Prince Tom that I'll return the 300 million I won from him within a year." Tom's assistant was stunned. Apparently, he didn't expect Luo Qingshan to say such a sentence. After a few seconds, he recovered and bowed politely. "I will definitely convey Mr. L's words." Luo Qingshan nodded. She put her hands in her pockets and turned away gracefully. She did not hesitate to use her special ability to come to Macau for a day trip. In addition to making herself the so-called rich generation, there was another purpose. Chapter 1389. She bought a ticket back to a city and returned home. The first thing she did was to conduct a land auction online, because all the forces were unwilling to show their faces. The whole process of this land auction was carried out on the internet, and the code name she gave herself was still Mr. L. She entered the room with a deposit of 1 million. At first, there were more than 30 people in the room, but as the bidding price increased, there were only 4 people left in the room in the end. The bidding IDs were 10109 in Yang, 10888 Liang Zhui, 10325 Gong Yin, and 10053 Mr. L. As the saying goes, whoever owns the Golden Triangle land in a city is the business tycoon of a city. The Golden Triangle land not only includes the most luxurious business district in a city, but also includes the affiliated high school and all the surrounding real estate. In other words, even if the person who got the Golden Triangle land wanted to turn the school into an amusement park, no one would dare to say anything. Before going to Macau, she had already learned about this part of the information. Although the Yin and Liang families were very influential in a city's business, the business tycoon of a city was not them, but Gong Yin. The bidding price finally reached 200 million, and the Yin and Liang families gave up, leaving only Luo Qingshan and Gong Yin. Luo Qingshan, who was sitting in front of the computer, frowned, and the fingertips holding the mouse trembled slightly. If Gong Yin continued to fight with her, she would probably lose. 15 minutes later, Luo Qingshan called the price to 300 million. This moment of breathless staring made her feel even more nervous. In the next second, a sentence appeared on the public screen, making Luo Qingshan stunned. "System 10325 Gong Yin has left the room." In the end, Luo Qingshan won the land in the city center with 300 million. The codename Mr. L was boiling in the business circle of the city for a while. The WeChat groups of the local tycoons also exploded in an instant. "I'm rich. Did you hear?" A dark horse appeared in the middle of the auction of the Golden Triangle land. 101 girlfriends. Who doesn't know about the focus of tonight's event? I wonder if this Mr. L likes men. O equals Omega, smiley face. M Gold Digger is me. You are really shameless. You have so many girlfriends, but you don't leave one for your sister. Look at my name. Don't steal it from me. I'd rather sit on a Rolls Royce and cry. Mr. L feels so handsome in the past. I like it so much. I wonder if she's willing to give me a Rolls Royce so that I can sit in it and cry. After taking the Golden Triangle land, Luo Qingshan spent the night dealing with the follow-up matters. This matter could be considered to have come to an end. After all, she still had to complete the main and side missions first. The next day, she woke up early and took the admission certificate to the affiliated high school. She was dressed very casually, with a beige sweater over a white shirt and a navy blue jacket. With such a student appearance, who would have thought that she was Mr. L who bought the Golden Triangle land last night? As soon as she reached the door, the security guard stopped her. Probably because she wasn't wearing her school uniform, a lot of eyes fell on her. However, no one recognized that she was the delinquent girl who had confessed to the school hunk at the school gate a few months ago, wearing a punk black shirt, ripped jeans, and dyed hair. This girl looks pretty good. I think so too. A transfer student? Ha ha. She looks so well-behaved. I don't expect such a well-behaved girl to be in class 7. Puffed. I think she's at most a freshman. How does she look like a sophomore? Umph. You bunch of people get wild when you see a beautiful girl. Chapter 1390. Luo Qingshun was too lazy to pay attention to these nagging. After explaining the purpose of her visit to the security guard at the door, the security guard pointed her to a road leading to the teaching office. Knock, knock, knock. Come in. Hello, you are. Hello, Dean. I'm a student from Zurich. I'm here to report today. Luo Qingshun handed the admission certificate in her hand to him and said, "This is my proof." The dean hurriedly stepped forward to take the certificate. He glanced at it and chuckled. "Ha ha, I always thought that this exchange student was a foreign national." Luo Qingshun just smiled and didn't say anything in response. After all, this identity was real and valid. There was no need to say anything else to prove herself. "Student Luo, I saw your grades last semester. Your grades are enough to go to class 1. But why did you write class 7 on the application form?" The dean frowned with some doubt and did not forget to say, "The students in class 7 are quite naughty. The dean is afraid that you will be bullied after you go there." "Dean, don't worry." Luo Qingshun raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled faintly. "I won't be bullied." Although the dean expressed his opposition to her going to class 7, since the exchange student was willing, he could not say anything. Sophomore class 7 was known as the biggest pest in the entire affiliated high school. Every semester there would be a new class teacher. All the teachers would not come to this class. Because the new semester had just started, the class teacher of sophomore class 7 had just taken office. Luo Qingshun looked up and down at Su Xin, who was walking beside her. She broke out in a cold sweat for her. Su Xin looked to be in her 20s. She had long hair, a tall and beautiful figure. But the feeling she gave her was that she was a bit timid. Why did she say this? Because it was the first time they were going to class 7. And Su Xin actually said to her, "I feel a bit nervous." Luo Qingshun was slightly stunned. She smiled helplessly and said, "When the boat reaches the bridge, it will straighten itself out." It turned out that when the boat reached the bridge, it was a bit difficult to straighten itself out. Luo Qingshun followed behind Su Xin. She saw that when Su Xin pushed open the door to the classroom, a basin of cold water fell on her head. Then a wave of laughter erupted. "Ha, how stupid. I heard that you're our form teacher. Do you like this surprise?" "Ha ha, this is only the first small surprise. We still have to get along well in the future." Luo Qingshun frowned slightly as she heard wave after wave of vulgar voices. She walked around Su Xin and went inside. She had only taken 2 steps when she stopped. Slowly squatting down, the moment the exquisite ring streaked across the red rope, a large water bucket also fell from the podium. At this moment, the entire class fell silent. In the next 5 minutes, she dismantled all the clumsy mechanisms in the classroom. She then turned around to look at everyone and said, "Aren't you guys tired of playing with such boring things?" In the next second, a young man with blonde hair raised his cold eyes and smiled. Interesting. Following the source of the voice, she saw the young man sitting at the last row surrounded by men and women. Su Jinyan. She narrowed her eyes and thought to herself, "This person is probably the core member of Class 7. Chapter 1391. Luo Qingshun didn't reply. She just lightly nodded and casually found an empty seat to sit down. The moment she walked into the classroom, an overwhelming number of comments swept over her. "This girl looks pretty good. Z, our class hasn't had such a good-looking girl in a long time. My food. No one can steal it from me." The above were the comments from the boys, but the girls' comments were completely different from the boys. "What are you pretending for, little white flower?" "I think so too. She looks like a pretentious person. She looks like a good girl on the surface, but in reality. So annoying. Did you guys notice that school hunk Su is looking at her?" "No way." The golden-haired Su Nyan's beautiful eyes were on her the entire time, like he was looking at her like she was prey. The previous host had a bit of an impression of Sun Yen. He was the other school hunk of the affiliated high school, an evildoer with a good family background. Just a bit of ruffian. The morning class passed very quickly. Other than Su Xin, who gave them an extracurricular mathematics lesson, the rest of the teachers basically let them do whatever they wanted. The free activities included whispering to each other, playing on the phone, playing games, singing, putting on makeup, playing poker, eating, etc. Seeing these pictures, Luo Qingxin's head hurt a bit. What kind of joke was the system playing? How could this class have the highest average score? She rubbed her temples. A girl sitting in the next group passed her a note with a simple line of words written on it. New student, do you want to go to the cafeteria to eat together? Lin Qing. Luo Qingchun looked over, and what entered her eyes was a young and normal face. She had a pair of black-rimmed eyes, and her skin was very white, but there were little freckles. Her desk was different from the others. It was very clean, and the textbooks and stationery were all placed neatly. Although it was just a quick glance, Luo Qingchun could gather a lot of information. For example, the girl next door should be a clear stream of the word study in Class 7. She thought about it and wrote OK on the note before passing it back. After a whole morning of classes, Luo Qingchun felt that her ears were about to explode. Even on the way to the cafeteria, the noises from the classroom were still playing in her ears. 3 twos, 1 against 6 king bomb. Hello, my name is Lin Qing. You haven't told me your name yet. Lin Qing's voice was very soft, and her gestures were like a very shy girl. Luckily, she had the courage to pass a note to Luo Qingchun. She was probably a little excited because she suddenly found an anomaly like herself in Class 7. Hello, my name is Luo Qingchun. She replied, Thank you for inviting me to lunch. There's no need to thank me. She hurriedly shook her head and said, I usually eat by myself. All right, why are you in Class 7? Usually, transfer students are in the better classes. PFFF, Luo Qingchun chuckled. I chose randomly, what about you? You look like you're studying very seriously. Why are you in Class 7? Lin Qing heard this and was slightly surprised. She scratched her head embarrassedly and said, My grades are very bad. Chapter 1392. Luo Qingchun nodded in understanding before saying with an awkward smile, Let's not talk about this. Let's eat first. She didn't find it strange. Studying didn't mean there would be results if one worked hard. Some learning methods or learning environments were also very important. When they walked into the cafeteria, they could feel the lively atmosphere of the crowd. Because the school hunk in Yusheng was also eating in the cafeteria. So handsome. He's simply the living sign of our school. I'm so jealous of Xia Qingro. She can be with school hunkin' every day. Why don't I have a childhood sweetheart? That's enough. Go back and dream. I've heard that Liang Bingbing couldn't even catch school hunkin'. Right. I've also heard about this. Qingchun, quickly come over. I've found a spot. Because the cafeteria was very noisy, Lin Qing raised her voice a bit to call her name. But with this call, and Yusheng, who had been focused on eating, suddenly looked up with a faint sparkle in his deep eyes. Xia Qingro naturally felt that something was wrong with the person in front of her, so she said in a gentle voice, It shouldn't be her. Actually, when she heard someone call out the words Qingchun, Xia Qingro's heart couldn't help skipping a beat. Because she lived under the same roof as in Yusheng, naturally she knew that in Yusheng and Luo Qingchun had gone to the concert. She was very envious that Luo Qingchun's weight could be exchanged for in Yusheng's persistence. She was also a bit sad. If she had Luo Qingchun's courage, perhaps she and in Yusheng wouldn't just be a match in other people's words. And Yusheng heard this, and his beautiful eyes looked around the cafeteria for a figure he might see, although he felt that it was impossible for her to appear here. But he had a premonition that she was here. In the next second, his gaze froze on the girl in the beige sweater. However, at this very moment, a golden-haired boy was standing next to the girl. He knew this boy, although he didn't care about the title of school hunk. However, due to his superior memory, he often heard the voices of people comparing the two of them. He narrowed his eyes, and a faint chill appeared in his eyes. Why do I feel like I'm suffocating? My heart feels especially uncomfortable. She always thought that he was just competing with Luo Qingshun on the proposition of love. The two of them used their own methods to make the other party fall in love with him first. But at this moment, when he saw Sun Yin talking to her, why did he feel so indignant? Is it really her? Xia Qingro looked in Yu Sheng's direction, and her eyes opened wide in disbelief. She clearly wasn't dressed like this. Why did she suddenly become so pure? It was as if she was emitting a faint light just by standing there. At the same time, Luo Qingshun, who was getting food, was stopped by Sun Yin. "New classmate, are you alone?" Sun Yin didn't line up and walked directly to her side. The funny thing was that not only did the people around her not blame her, they even shyly made way for her. As expected, looking good was a kind of capital. He. Luo Qingshun's lips twitched as she said with a smile, "Me and Lin Qing." Sun Yin knit his brows and thought for a while before giving a shrug. "I have a bit of an impression." Chapter 1393. Sun Yin didn't think that Luo Qingshun wouldn't be smitten with him at all. Instead, she seemed a little cold. At that moment, he felt a sense of defeat. "Since you're a new classmate, why don't we eat together?" Sun Yin took her plate and walked to the first row to order a few luxurious dishes and paid for them. 3 seconds later, he passed the plate back to her and said, "Is that okay?" Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and politely took the plate. Then, she studied Sun Yin from head to toe. At school that morning, she didn't take a good look at this young man. She only thought that he was the leader of Class 7. But in that instant, she saw Sun Yin's face clearly. He had a pair of brown eyes, thin lips, and an enchanting smile at the corner of his mouth. Of course, Luo Qingshun nodded lightly, and then turned to walk toward Lin Qing. Her brows furrowed slightly, and the whispers around her instantly entered her ears. "That person looks unfamiliar. How does she know Sun Yin? I'm so jealous." "Oomph. Jealous my ass. It's not like you don't know what kind of person Sun Yin is. Novelty is the most important thing. He changes girlfriends every 3 days." "That's true. But speaking of which, this girl is quite pretty. Is she a transfer student?" "I don't know. Maybe." She raised her eyes and put down the plate in her hand. Then, she took out 20 yuan from her pocket and handed it to Sun Yin. "Here's the money for the meal. Thank you for helping me get the meal." Sun Yin was stunned. His face froze. He knew that Luo Qingshun would return the money to him, but he didn't expect her to return it to him so directly. "We're all classmates. You're welcome. I don't like owing people things." She still had a faint smile on her face, but there was absolute certainty in her eyes. The atmosphere suddenly became awkward. In the next second, Sun Yin shrugged and took the money back like a ruffian. He said, "New classmate, I've done my part as the host. Thank you for being the host." Luo Qingshun handed the dishes to Lin Qing and said, "My name is Luo Qingshun. Of course, if you want to call me new classmate, I don't recommend it." "What?" "Luo Qingshun." Just as Luo Qingshun said her full name, Liang Bingbing, who had been observing for a long time, rushed over. She opened her mouth and stared at Luo Qingshun. Why are you here?" This time, everyone was present. She was not surprised to run into Liang Bingbing at school. It was just that under such circumstances, it really felt like they were the target of public criticism. "Bingbing?" Sun Yin was slightly taken aback as a trace of confusion flashed through his eyes. It was said that the person in front of her was an exchange student who had just transferred from overseas. How did Liang Bingbing know her? "Sun Yin?" Liang Bingbing pouted and said in a coquettish tone, "Why are you eating with this delinquent girl?" She didn't expect to see Luo Qingshun in the affiliated school's cafeteria. When she saw her, she didn't react at all. She just thought she looked familiar. Until someone called her name, she still couldn't confirm that the person in front of her was the delinquent girl Luo Qingshun. If she didn't introduce herself, she might have left the cafeteria. Chapter 1394. Don't be fooled by her. Liang Bingbing cleared her throat, then raised her voice and said, "She's the delinquent girl who confessed that she wanted to chase our school hunk in a few months ago at our school's entrance." "What transfer student? Who are you trying to fool?" For a poor person like Luo Qingshun, how could she be a transfer student? Did these people have brains? She was just a bit more innocent, and they couldn't recognize her. Hiss! The onlookers all sucked in a breath of cold air when they heard this. This person is the girl who chased after school, Hunk, and a few months ago? It can't be. The difference is too big. I don't think so. I also think so. If she is, how could she transfer to our school? But Liang Bingbing wouldn't be this. Heartless to a transfer student. That isn't certain. Who doesn't know that the school flower's obsession with the school Hunk is very deep? But Luo Qingshun took a sip of the juice on the table and said, "Do we know each other?" Just these few words made Liang Bingbing's face turn red with anger. She pointed at her while trembling as she roared. "You don't know me? Do you think that you can get rid of those dirty things from the past by saying that you don't know me? I just came back not long ago. I really don't know what you're talking about." Luo Qingshun's lips curled into a faint curve. "If you don't believe me, you can go to the discipline master to look at my file." Oh, everyone heard Luo Qingshun's calm response and believed her words. After all, some of them had seen the delinquent girl waiting for Yu Sheng at the school gate. That non-mainstream delinquent girl and the pure girl in front of them were simply two different people. Liang Bingbing tightly bit her lip and looked at her with a fierce gaze. "Keep pretending. I will immediately tear off this mask of yours. Just wait and see." Bingbing, did you really recognize the wrong person? Sun Yin looked at Luo Qingshun, who had an absolute aura around her and really couldn't associate her with the delinquent girl. He had to admit that his first impression of Luo Qingshun was very good. Besides, he wanted to chase after her. "Sun Yin, why don't you believe me?" Liang Bingbing helplessly bit her lips. She thought that at least when she was put together with the delinquent girl, Sun Yin would believe her. After all, they had once been a couple for 7 days. "It's not that I don't believe you." Sun Yin's brows moved slightly, her brown eyes flashing with a faint liguang. Looking at Luo Qingshun, she said, "It's just that I should protect our new classmate." As soon as he finished speaking, another teenager in the cafeteria, who was the center of attention, could no longer hold it in and wanted to stand up. At this moment, Xiaqing Ro pressed down on his hand and said, "If you go over now, they will definitely think that classmate Luo is that delinquent girl." And Yu Sheng's breathing stopped, and his slender fingers couldn't help trembling. Xiaqing Ro was right. If he went out now, it would be a piece of solid evidence. But he just couldn't accept it. At this moment, he could probably see his heart completely, even though he had just started to answer the love test. But the desire and possession in his heart made it impossible for him to accept that someone else liked her. Chapter 1395. When the system notification sounded in her ears, her heart skipped a beat. She never thought that Yu Sheng would give her affection at this time. This quiet youth, what was he thinking? "Sun Yin, I hate you." Liang Bingbing pursed her lips and roared with red eyes. "Luo Qingshun, just you wait. For a poor little girl like you, even if you come here, it's impossible for you to become someone with the same status as us." As soon as her voice fell, she covered her mouth and ran out of the cafeteria. Everyone saw that the fight was over and they all scattered. Luo Qingshun didn't mind at all. She just enjoyed her meal with an indifferent look. Lin Qing, sitting beside her, pulled on her sleeve and said, "Sorry, I couldn't help." Her voice was very soft, but she didn't dare look up at her as her eyes were filled with apology. Luo Qingshun's lips curled slightly as she said with a faint smile, "What is wrong with that? I don't care." "You really are open-minded. You don't care about this?" Sun Yin had a faint look of admiration in his eyes as his heart filled with joy. This feeling was very strange. It was like meeting someone you liked and your heart suddenly opened up. But the girl in front of him didn't seem that easy to deal with. But he didn't panic at all. After all, in this world, there was no girl that Sun Yin couldn't deal with. "What should I care about?" Luo Qingshun put down her chopsticks and took a sip of her juice. "I never care about strangers." Not to mention that this stranger was Liang Bingbing, who didn't have a high IQ. "AI, then can I ask you a question?" Sun Yin took out a pack of tissues from his uniform pocket and looked at her with a smirk. "Do you dare to tell me the truth? You can ask the question, but whether I answer or not depends on my mood." As soon as she said this, the phone in her pocket vibrated. She took it out with her right hand and looked at it before putting it back in her pocket. The one calling her was no one else but Yu Sheng. You really are interesting. Sun Yin raised his eyebrows. The corner of his mouth revealed a devilish smile as he looked at her and said, Are you the little delinquent girl that Bing Bing mentioned? In fact, he didn't lie before. It wasn't that he didn't trust Liang Bing Bing. It was just that at that moment, he wanted to protect Luo Qingshan more. However, he still wanted to know the answer. After all, Liang Bing Bing shouldn't have wronged someone for no reason, even if this person was a great threat to her position as the campus belle. Why don't you guess? Her left hand tapped the table out of habit. Her clear eyes narrowed as she scrutinized Sun Yin. In the next second, he slowly got up and leaned close to her ear. With his unique scent, he gently whispered in her ear, I guess so. His voice was very soft. Other than Luo Qingshan, no one else could hear him. For some reason, he had an inexplicable desire to protect the girl in front of him. Whether or not she was the person Liang Bing Bing was talking about, his next girlfriend would definitely be her. It's a pity. She gave a soft laugh. Her face was very calm without a trace of nervousness as she looked at him and said, You didn't guess right. Oh. He looked down with a bit of frustration as he looked at her and said, I'm suddenly a bit disappointed. Can classmate Luo help me? Oh. Luo Qingshan looked up with a smile at Sun Yin's sudden question. How can I help? Chapter 1396. Cuckoo. Lin Qing, sitting on the side, almost spat out a mouthful of rice. Thinking about it, Luo Qingshan had only been at school for half a day, and Sun Yin had confessed to her, so it was normal for her to be scared. Luo Qingshan was a bit surprised. Not only was she not scared, she felt a bit awkward. Sun Yin in front of her was a love master. Being able to say this without anyone noticing, it definitely wasn't his first time doing this. The phone in her pocket vibrated one after another. Her lips curled into a faint smile as she pressed the answer button. Hi. If you don't want me to go over now, reject him. Luo Qingshan never thought that an Yu Sheng who was like a spring breeze would be this decisive in having her reject Sun Yin. Could it be that he felt a sense of danger? Then I'm going over. After that, Luo Qingshan quickly said to Sun Yin with a faint smile, Sorry, my boyfriend is calling. Luo Qingshan could naturally feel that the atmosphere had become incomparably awkward. The surrounding people all revealed looks of disbelief. You're quite obedient. And Yu Sheng's brows relaxed as he looked in her direction. I'll wait for you at the library. Okay. She answered softly and then hung up the phone. Ding. Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 40%. Sun Yin gave an awkward shrug before saying, I never thought that you would have a boyfriend. Is it very strange? Luo Qingshan looked up. In another 6 months, I'll be 18. It's not strange. I've had quite a few girlfriends, but what? But I can guarantee that my next girlfriend will be you. He said this while holding his cheek with his right hand, as his brown eyes focused on her. She narrowed her eyes and replied with a faint smile, You're quite confident. We'll wait and see. As soon as his voice fell, Sun Yin revealed an evil, charming smile before turning to leave the cafeteria. There were sighs all around. There were different opinions about the sudden appearance of Luo Qingshan. Some people said that she was a little white flower who pretended to be reserved, while others felt that love was not something that one had to accept just because the school hunk confessed. But for Luo Qingshan, none of them were important. What was important was, and Yu Sheng seemed jealous. Library. When Luo Qingshan arrived, and Yu Sheng wasn't there yet, so she casually found a seat by the window to sit down. The warm winter sun shone through the window on her desk, pouring down like fragments of golden light, exuding a youthful aura. She had brought a few math test papers with her. She glanced at them casually before writing down the answers. He had to admit that she had a deep understanding of mathematics. After all, she had once been a math genius in a certain dimension. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. As long as it wasn't too difficult, it was a piece of cake for her to write out the answer to this kind of mathematics question just by looking at the question. The library was much quieter than the cafeteria. Most of the people who came here were students with better grades, so there were relatively fewer gossips. But that was only limited to when Yu Sheng wasn't here. When he appeared in the library, he had won everyone's attention. It was like wherever Yusheng went, it was a beautiful scenery. School honk. Huh. I'm a bit excited. He's coming over. He's coming over. Do you think he'll sit beside me? In your dreams. And Yusheng's final destination was very clear. He walked over to Luo Qingqian's side and casually sat down. Chapter 1397. What is this situation? I know this girl. Your school honk Sue just confessed to her in the cafeteria. My God, I'm so jealous. What are you jealous of? She looks like a little white flower that seduces people. Although there were some unpleasant words, Luo Qingqian didn't care at all. The most important thing to her right now was in Yusheng, who didn't look too good. Why did you suddenly come to study? His deep eyes looked at her, and he pursed his lips in an unwilling manner. Since you're here, why did you go to class 7? Actually, he was very excited when she suddenly came to school to study. But he didn't know why she went to class 7. Was it because of Sun Yan? At this moment, there seemed to be two voices shouting in his head. The terrifying demon had defeated the rational youth. He couldn't help combining the two words Sun Yan with the reason why she went to class 7. His heart was filled with waves, and he couldn't calm down. I have my reasons for going to class 7. She looked up slightly and seriously looked at him. She didn't say what the reason was since she couldn't say it. And Yusheng slightly knit his brows. His heart was completely filled with demons, and even his clear eyes were covered in a layer of darkness. At that moment, his heart had already determined that Luo Qingqian went to class 7 because of Sun Yan. Ding dong. The phone on the table vibrated. It was a text from an unknown number, and the content was very simple. Lin Qing has a stomach ache and is in the infirmary. Sun Yan. Luo Qingqian knit her brows and put her phone in her pocket before saying to An Yusheng, something happened to my desk mate. I'm going to the infirmary. Sun Yan sent you a text? There was a dark look in his eyes as he looked at the girl in front of him, and there was a trace of coldness in his voice. He didn't know what kind of feeling this was. He just knew that he wasn't happy. There was a stuffy feeling in his chest that was very uncomfortable. Right. Although Luo Qingqian couldn't guess what he was thinking, she knew that he wasn't happy. She seemed to understand what the system meant by personality disorder. That kind of obsession with the things she liked was like a flower that grew in the dark and damp, nourishing and blooming. He replied faintly and casually flipped open the textbook in front of him. You can go. These 3 words were very calm, without a trace of warmth. This in Yusheng made her feel a bit cold, and she didn't even want to go to the infirmary. But after all, Lin Qing was the only one in the class who talked to her. The side quest was already very difficult, so it was reasonable for her to go. Sorry, let's meet again tomorrow. Luo Qingqian picked up her bag. Her eyes were a little flustered, but she still ran towards the infirmary. The sky was filled with dark clouds, and the cold wind was howling. A storm seemed to be coming soon. When Luo Qingqian arrived at the infirmary, only Lin Qing was there. She didn't look well, but she was obviously happy to see Luo Qingqian. She used to be ostracized in class 7 because she didn't want to wear makeup and didn't know the trends. She was often called a country bumpkin. Over time, she no longer dared to make friends. Whether it was the cafeteria or the library, she was always alone. This time she came to the infirmary after eating something bad. She thought that she would be the only one there. She never thought that the proud young master Sun Yan would actually send her here. Chapter 1398. How is it? Are you feeling better? Luo Qingqian looked at her with some confusion. I feel like you should be eating the same as us. Why did you suddenly have a stomachache? That. Lin Qing lowered her head in embarrassment. I can't eat spicy food, but I'm a bit embarrassed. Luo Qingqian blinked and helplessly shook her head. Why didn't you say you could eat it? She knit her brows and said with a bit of resentment, I was afraid you guys would think I was delicate. After all, today was the first time she had someone eat with her in 2 years. It wasn't easy to make friends, and she was afraid of losing them because of her. Pooh! Luo Qingqian couldn't help laughing. What a silly girl. Oh, that's right. Lin Qing pointed at the cake on the table and said, This was left behind by Sun Yan. He told me to give it to you if you came again. Cake. Luo Qingqian knit her brows and only realized after 3 seconds. The previous host's birthday was tomorrow. It seemed like Sun Yin had gone to the administration office to look at her file. Otherwise, how could he have her phone number and know her birthday? Ding dong. A message sounded, and it was from that familiar, unknown number. I'm giving you a cake in advance since I'm chasing you. Are you free tonight? Sun Yin, Lin Qing, who was lying on the bed, said with a charming smile. Qing Chun, you're really lucky. Sun Yin liked you as soon as you came. Although he had many girlfriends, there are still many who want to be his girlfriend. Not free. Luo Qing Chun, you think he likes me? Luo Qing Chun raised her brows and said, then what are his previous girlfriends? Lin Qing scratched her head and didn't say anything. Hong Long, there was another burst of thunder. Luo Qing Chun knit her brows and felt a bit uneasy. Her uneasiness wasn't groundless. That clean and sunny youth didn't go to class all afternoon. He took off his jacket and sweater, leaving only a thin shirt on. He stood in a thunderstorm for the entire afternoon on the top floor of the teaching building for the first year of high school for the rest of the year. In the heart of this stubborn youth, if he wanted someone to stay by his side, the most effective method was to make her feel pain for him. Ding-ling. The bell rang for the end of class. There were fewer classes in the afternoon, and it was only 5 when school was over. Luo Qing-chan sent in Yu Sheng, but she didn't receive a reply. When they reached the first floor, they found him leaning against the staircase with his hands in his pockets, attracting the attention of the girls. Seeing her walk down alone without anyone else, he was a little surprised. A faint light flashed through his eyes that were as deep as the sea. Cough, cough. He coughed lightly and said, let's go home. Without knowing why, when she looked in Yu Sheng's face, Luo Qing-chen's heart skipped a beat. In the dim light, that good-looking side, that pale face. When he said, going home, there was a bit of gentleness in his voice. Luo Qing-chen was about to head in his direction when Sun Yin patted her shoulder. Classmate Luo Qing-chen, you really aren't going to eat together? What? Are you afraid that you'll fall in love with me after eating with me once? Chapter 1399. Because of the rain, there weren't many people around, but that didn't mean that there were no people. When Yu Sheng said those 3 words, there were already a few whispers. Now that Sun Yin was openly calling her by her name, it was simply pushing her to the center of the storm. I think that what I said in the text was very sorry, classmate. A pair of hot hands suddenly took her hand and tightly held it. He looked at Yu Sheng with eyes filled with hostility. She's my girlfriend. He should have said this in the cafeteria, but the demon in his heart hadn't completely taken over him. After the baptism of the rain in the afternoon, the only thought in his heart seemed to have been confirmed. That love proposition of who wanted to fall in love with whom suddenly didn't seem that important. At this moment, the most important thing to him was the person he was tightly holding. The surrounding air seemed to freeze at that moment. Luo Qing-chen's mind exploded, and she felt like her mind was blank. The whispers of the crowd were like a sword aimed at her and Yu Sheng. I didn't believe Liang Bingbing's words at noon, but now there's conclusive evidence. What does this mean? This transfer student is the little punk girl who came to wait for the school hunk. That's impossible. She doesn't look like it, and our school isn't a place that anyone can casually come to. Little punk, can't she just do some dirty things? What? Do the so-called high school students only know how to talk? And Yu Sheng narrowed his cold eyes and looked at the girl who said the last words without any warmth. He said in a cold voice, I still have the heart. You don't need to come tomorrow. See, the surrounding students were all shocked by Yu Sheng's words. That youth who was as gentle as the sun had actually said such cold words. Everyone knew the in-group's position in a city. If the in-family's young master wanted to target someone, it was just too easy for him. For that girl, she dared to say this in front of Yu Sheng because Yu Sheng always gave people the image of a gentle boy. It was impossible for her to imagine that such a boy would suddenly become so terrifying. However, this Yu Sheng made Sun Yin knit his brows. You're her boyfriend? Sun Yin put his hands in his pocket, looking like a ruffian as he narrowed his eyes to look at Yu Sheng. The two of them had never interacted before. After all, they were not from the same world. Even though both of them were very famous in school, they didn't know each other. Can't I? And Yuxing pulled Luo Qingchen behind her and looked at Sun Yin coldly. My girlfriend doesn't need you to chase after her. As soon as he finished speaking, he pulled Luo Qingchen's hand and walked forward. Sun Yin, who was behind him, replied somewhat unwillingly, I'm sorry, but Sun Yin, have never failed to woo anyone I like. This was the truth. Moreover, no girl had ever dumped him. He was always the one dumping girls. Therefore, he had absolute confidence in himself. Even if the other side was in Yusheng, he would definitely be able to woo Luo Qingchen. The smoke of love was instantly ignited. One was the playboy Sun Yin, and the other was in Yusheng, who had never had a girlfriend before. Luo Qingchen didn't care about their exchange. What she cared about was. And Yusheng's hand was very hot. Chapter 1400. His right hand was holding the umbrella, almost completely covering the girl beside him, being careful not to let her get soaked by the rain. Luo Qingchen stopped and tightly knit her brows. She raised her right hand to touch his forehead. God, it was so hot. At that moment, the lips of an Yusheng who had no expression couldn't help curling into a faint curve. It was like he had achieved his goal, doing things that hurt himself to make the girl beside him care about him and feel pain for him. Luo Qingchen didn't notice the curve of his lips. She just felt her heart skip a beat. She pursed her lips and said, Do you have a fever? He softly replied. He didn't say anything else as he tightly held her hand as he walked forward. And Yusheng? Luo Qingchen bit her lip as she looked a bit anxious. With such a hot temperature, it was at least 38 degrees, and he calmly said, What is it? He looked to the side, and there was a gentle look on his pale face as he looked at her. You didn't tell me where you live. Cuckoo, how can I send you back like this? His voice was very soft, but made one's heart ache. Let's go to the hospital. Luo Qingchen touched his forehead again as her brows knit even tighter. I'm not going. And Yusheng imitated her actions as he softly patted her head. The way you're worried about me is really good. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 50%. When she heard the system's notification, she really wasn't happy. She couldn't guess his personality. With a strange, possessive, and stubborn personality, it made Yusheng very hard to grasp. Then let's go to the pharmacy in front to buy some medicine. All right? You'll feed me. Looking at his youthful and sunny face, although it was pale, there was a bit of pride to it. She didn't know how to describe her feelings at this moment. All right. She helplessly nodded as her eyes sparkled with embarrassment. Little did she know that her thin lips were actually raised into a beautiful arc. She slightly leaned towards her and gently planted a kiss on her cheek. I think the way you blush, cough, cough, is really beautiful. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 60%. She trembled. She never thought that an Yusheng would actually steal a kiss in this rain. Oh no, it should be an open and above-board kiss. You stay here and don't move. I'll go buy some so that you won't be drenched by the rain the whole time. Luo Qingchen left him at the door of a convenience store. Holding an umbrella, she walked to the convenience store not far away. And Yusheng didn't seem stubborn since he was certain that even if he covered her with the umbrella, she would still be drenched by the rain. That way, she would still be the only one holding the umbrella. What they didn't expect was that when they were on the first floor of the school, there was another person who overheard their conversation. That was the school flower, Liang Bingbing. Her cousin Zhao Jinxian was also eating skewers with his brothers nearby. She was planning on using the night to tie up in Yusheng and Luo Qingchen. She wanted Yusheng to personally see this delinquent girl being insulted by a man. But now it seemed like God didn't want her to be this cruel. Since they had split up, it was fine as long as she tied up Luo Qingchen. When she passed by the alley after buying the medicine, there were 5 or 6 people holding sticks that came in her direction. Chapter 1401. He was also the person who had killed in Yusheng in a parallel world. She hadn't thought of how to take revenge yet, but they had sent themselves to her door. Luo Qingchen, you've been reborn, going from a punk girl to a good girl. Zhao Jinxian licked his rough lips. He was very interested in Luo Qingchen, who had changed her appearance. He liked this kind of youthful girl the most. It would definitely feel good doing it. Luo Qingshun heard this, and there was a trace of arrogance in her eyes as her lips curled. Your idiom isn't bad. Yo, 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 what idiom is it? Tell your big brother, Jin Xian. Zhao Jinxian spat out a mouthful of saliva before looking at her. I'll have my brothers go easy on you later. Reborn. As soon as her voice fell, Luo Qingshun put her right hand behind her, and a 9-section moon whip appeared in her hand. In the dark alley in the pouring rain, Zhao Jinxian didn't notice that there was an extra weapon in her hand. He just had a wretched smile as he said to the little brother beside him, Xiaozi, how about I let you have a good time first today? Really, boss? Xiaozi excitedly nodded as he looked at Luo Qingshun while drooling. Although this place is a bit dirty, you can be assured that big brother will be gentle. What nonsense! Luo Qingshun narrowed her cold eyes and her lips curled into a cold arc. Come together! Yo, 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 you really are a punk girl. Look at how spicy it is. Zhao Jinxian tilted his lips and said while panting, I'm afraid we can't satisfy you. Brothers come together. Humph. She gave a cold snort as her clear eyes filled with killing intent. If this wasn't a modern society with laws, she would guarantee that these men who only knew how to insult a girl's innocence would die without a complete corpse. But if this was the modern world, she could make their bodies lack something. Schwa, schwa, schwa. In the blink of an eye, the 9-section moon whip wrapped around a certain organ of the man. She exerted a little force on her wrist and flung her right hand. A heart-wrenching scream was heard. Listening to such a miserable shriek, it was quite satisfying. At the same time, and Yu Sheng standing at the door of the convenience store never thought that the one who came wasn't Luo Qingshun, but rather his school's Liang Bingbing. School Hunkin, are you waiting for someone? She was holding a pink lace umbrella, dressed like a lady, and wearing a light perfume. And Yu Sheng knit his brows and didn't respond. She just took out her phone and planned to call Luo Qingshun. For some reason, he felt a little uneasy in his heart. Liang Bingbing, who was standing on the side being ignored, was a bit angry. Seeing Yu Sheng take out his phone, she stomped her foot and said, Stop Luo Qingshun. She's already in my brother's tender home. She was the school belle of the high school affiliated to Renmin University of China. How could she lose to a delinquent girl? Even if she didn't have any proof of her previous identity, it didn't mean that she could easily become Yu Sheng's girlfriend. If she wasn't clean, Yu Sheng definitely wouldn't like her. What did you say? Yu Sheng narrowed his cold eyes, and a chill came from his body, almost freezing everyone around him. Liang Bingbing raised her head and said, I meant what I said. Before she could finish, Yu Sheng's right hand tightly grabbed her shoulder and pulled her into the middle of the busy road. There wasn't much traffic on this road, so most of the cars were moving very quickly. Liang Bingbing's face turned pale and her lips trembled as she said, What are you doing? Chapter 1402. Liang Bingbing's face turned pale as the cars around them whizzed by. It was like she was standing on the edge of life and death. And Yu Sheng in front of her had bloodshot eyes that were filled with killing intent. It was as if in the next second, he could really perish together with her. You. Liang Bingbing gasped for breath as tears started to roll down her cheeks. She said in a trembling voice, I don't know. Let me go. I beg you. Let me go. If she didn't see Yu Sheng like this, she wouldn't have dared believe it. That gentle and elegant school hunk was actually this terrifying at this moment. It seems like you really don't want to live. And Yu Sheng's right hand tightly grabbed her shoulder. Hong Long. There was a loud clap of thunder that rang in their ears. Large droplets of rain streaked across his cheeks. His originally pale complexion made him look even more eerie. There was a large truck not far away that was filled with steel bars that was heading in their direction. Don't. Save me. Liang Bingbing was so scared that she couldn't speak coherently. She desperately begged the boy she used to like the most, begging him to let her go. The headlights of the truck dazzled their eyes, and there was a long honking sound. The ground was very slippery because of the rain, and Yu Sheng's eyes had a dark glow as his lips curled into a cold smile. There was a panic cry that sounded in his ears, but he felt that it was very sweet. It was like a living person's final cry in this world. Since this person kept reaching her hands out to the girl he cared about the most, why should he let her live? The people who liked her shouldn't appear in this world. The people who wanted to hurt her should all die. The only one who could receive her attention in this world was him. And Yu Sheng. There was a hysterical call that made his right hand stop. In an instant, the large truck filled with steel bars passed by Liang Bingbing. And Yu Sheng slowly turned his head and looked at Luo Qingchen at the entrance of the convenience store. His dim eyes instantly became clear. His brows twitched slightly. He released his right hand and dashed in her direction. Without Yu Sheng's support, Liang Bingbing's legs turned soft and she fell to the ground. In the middle of the busy road, she wanted to leave but found that she didn't have any strength. Qingchen. At the entrance of the convenience store, and Yu Sheng softly called Luo Qingchen's name before taking her in his embrace. His hot breath lingered by her ear as he hugged her tightly, as if he was using all his strength. It's okay, it's okay. At this moment, Luo Qingchen's heart was pounding nonstop. Her fingertips were still trembling slightly, and her heart was filled with lingering fear, because she had seen how Yu Sheng wanted to die with Liang Bingbing. On that clean face, there was a determination to charge towards death. It's good that you're all right. His voice was very soft. His head sank, and he fell straight into her arms. Ding! Affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 70%. And Yu Sheng, she hugged him as she fell to the ground. Her right hand touched his burning forehead, and seeing his face that was as pale as paper, her heart didn't feel good. In the heavy rain, the youth silently fell into her embrace. Chapter 14:03. Dida, Dida, Dida. In the hallway of the hospital, the sound of the large clock was very clear. There was the smell of alcohol and formalin in the air. She closed her eyes, and there was an indescribable feeling in her heart. Who is the family member? When the nurse's voice sounded, she came back to her senses and nervously stood up. I am. The patient's condition isn't good. The pneumonia is very serious and the fever won't go down. The nurse gave her the bill and said, although there's no danger to his life, you have to observe him closely. All right, Luo Qingchen said, can I go in now? You can. In a single room, and Yu Sheng had his eyes closed as he silently laid in bed. There was a device connected to his fingertips that showed his heartbeat. Luo Qingchen came to his bedside, and her eyes couldn't help turning red. She felt that she didn't do anything, but she had unknowingly hurt him. After a while, the door to the room was opened. Xiaqing Ro came in a panic, and when she saw Yu Sheng's face, her tears couldn't help falling down. Luo Qingchen didn't disturb her and just sat on the side without saying a word. Without knowing how long passed, Xiaqing Ro finally stopped crying. She turned to Luo Qingchen and said, Classmate Luo, can I talk to you? Luo Qingchen gave a slight nod and didn't reject her. Xiaqing Ro really was one of the few good supporting female leads that she had seen in all these worlds. Moreover, the aura and upbringing she gave people surpassed her understanding of the word supporting female lead. In an empty hallway, Xiaqing Ro leaned against the wall and slowly said, Actually, when I first saw you, I guessed that big brother Yu Sheng would like you, although he never admitted it back then. As soon as her voice fell, she gave a bitter laugh as she looked at her with eyes filled with tears. You're very lucky. I envy you very much. Luo Qingchen took 2 cups of hot coffee from the vending machine at the end of the hallway and asked, Why do you think this? Xiaqing Ro took the coffee and said with a smile, Because after Big Brother and left, it was my first time seeing Big Brother Yu Sheng recover his own eyes. When he looks at you, his eyes will glow, that kind of dim light. Brother-in? Luo Qingchen knit her brows. She felt that she had to enter in Yu Sheng's world through Xiaqing Ro. People with personality disorders in this world must have received a strong stimulus in the past, which caused the personality they displayed to others to be different from their own personality. But Luo Qingchen never understood. And Yu Sheng had grown up in such a good family. So why did he have the personality disorder that the system mentioned? Big Brother and his big brother Yu Sheng's big brother. Xiaqing Ro sipped her coffee and sighed softly. Even though he's long gone from this world, In the next half an hour, Luo Qingshan listened to Xia Qing Ro sigh again and again. She kept talking about in Yu Sheng's past. It turned out that he wasn't a quiet and gentle teenager when he was in elementary school. At that time, he was just a little hoodlum. Skipping class, going to the arcade, fighting, he knew almost everything. The real gentle and elegant teenager was his big brother in Liang Sheng. Chapter 1404. But in Liang Sheng was different. His love for his little brother was unparalleled in this world. When in Yu Sheng was arguing with the people of society, and Liang Sheng stood in front of him without any hesitation. He was stabbed in the heart and couldn't be saved. I vaguely remember that uncle and auntie kept saying, "Why wasn't the one who died you?" Xia Qing Ro raised her right hand and wiped the tears from her face. Since then, big brother Yu Sheng has changed. He has become the same as big brother Liang Sheng, or even better than him. But I know that he knows how to hide himself. After hearing Xia Qing Ro's story, Luo Qingshan was silent for a while before slowly saying, "He is just acting as in Liang Sheng." "Yes." Xia Qing Ro nodded. Her lips curled into a bitter smile. "Classmate Luo, what I'm about to say is related to you. Us? I know that him liking you is inevitable." Xia Qing Ro slightly knit her brows as she looked at him. In this world, as long as it is something big brother Yu Sheng wants to do, as long as it is within the limits of human, there is nothing he can't get. "So, do you like him?" Xia Qing Ro was very embarrassed, but she still asked this. "I do." Luo Qingshan nodded. She didn't hesitate at all as she directly answered her question. "If big brother's love makes you feel fear, would you still like him?" Xia Qing Ro knit her brows. She looked at Yu Sheng's face through the window, and there was a complicated emotion in her voice. Fear? Luo Qingshan could understand what Xia Qing Ro was saying, because she could already guess in Yu Sheng's personality. In the next second, her eyebrows twitched slightly as she continued. "Are you trying to say that his fever might have been caused by himself?" "You know?" As expected, Xia Qing Ro looked at her with a bit of surprise. After all, she thought that even if Luo Qingshan was a strong girl, but in the face of such a terrifying love, one should feel fear. Luo Qingshan looked at her surprised expression and unconsciously touched her face. With a happy and appreciative smile, she said, "If it were you, would you be afraid?" "I won't. I'm worried about his safety, and I don't want him to hurt himself." Luo Qingshan didn't wait for Xia Qing Ro to finish speaking before continuing her words. She didn't forget to add, "I feel that the only person he loved in this world has already left. He doesn't feel safe at all." She now completely understood why the system had said those words to her in the beginning. And Yu Sheng was this kind of person. That night, they chatted in the corridor for the whole night. They talked about in Yu Sheng's past and the small things in his life, but the most important thing was how to cure him. At the same time, Zhao Jinxian and his group of brothers also entered the hospital. Liang Bingbing was so scared that she didn't fall asleep until she was given a sedative. The next morning, there was the sound of her arguing with Zhao Jinxian in the room. "Didn't you go to stop Luo Qingshan? Why did you end up in the hospital?" "Io, young miss, father almost lost my precious weapon. Do you know that? You're still yelling at me. Why can't I yell at you? You can't even take care of a Luo Qingshan, and you're not embarrassed to call yourself the big brother." Chapter 1405. As soon as Zhao Jinxian's voice fell, the little brothers beside him all nodded with varying degrees of injuries. Liang Bingbing had her hands at her waist as her eyes filled with rage. After what happened last night, she already had no interest in Yu Sheng at all. That pervert, he actually wanted to die with her? "My good little sister, what is the background of this Luo Qingshan? She beat us like cutting vegetables. Let me tell you, if this was the ancient times, your big brother would have already died, all right?" Zhao Jinxian saw that she wasn't speaking, so he didn't forget to say a few words. However, Liang Bingbing acted like she didn't hear anything. She took a deep breath, and a sinister look appeared in her eyes as she muttered, "I don't know what background this Luo Qingshan has, but in Yu Sheng, I know how to make him suffer a fate worse than death." Because the Liang and his families were aristocratic families, she knew a few things about the Yin family. The things that Sheng liked, if she could steal them away, it would definitely be a very interesting thing. Thinking of this, she took out her phone to call Sun Yan. Bing Bing, what is it? Your next girlfriend is in the hospital. Aren't you coming to take a look? She had just seen Luo Qingshun come downstairs. This hospital was the closest to the convenience store yesterday, so Sheng should be here. Qingshun? Sun Yan's voice was a bit nervous before he said, send me the address. At the same time, Sheng woke up. He narrowed his eyes and looked around. When he saw Luo Qingshun's figure, he calmed down. Big brother, you're ignoring me. Xiaqing Ro came in with breakfast while speaking with a smile. Actually, in her heart, as long as Sheng was happy, she would be happy. How could that be? Sheng gently sat up and said, how long did I sleep for? Just a night. Luo Qingshun put a pillow on his head and used an ear thermometer to check his temperature. 38. 2 degrees, it was still a bit hot. Ding-ling. Her phone rang and cut off what she wanted to say. Although the caller ID didn't show a name, it showed a familiar number. She hung up and looked at Sheng lying in bed as she seriously said, your fever isn't gone yet. Drink more water and take your medicine. Luo Qingshun could naturally feel that when her phone rang, there was a dark glow in Sheng's eyes. With a favorable impression of 70%, he cared about every detail about her. This kind of strong possessiveness and desire to be bound should be stressful for any girl. But she didn't. Thus, his worry for Xiaqing Ro was unnecessary. Ding-dong, his pocket vibrated. It was a message from Sun Yan. Luo Qingshun wanted to ignore it, but after reading it, she realized that she couldn't. Tell me your room number. If you don't, I'll yell your name over the loudspeaker. Sun Yan. Seeing the words, loudspeaker, Luo Qingshun unconsciously frowned. She put her phone back in her pocket and looked at Xiaqing Ro. I'm going out for a bit. Do you want something to drink? Xiaqing Ro immediately understood what she meant and said with a nod, I want a glass of lemon juice. Big brother doesn't need it. He's only suited to drinking water like this. Chapter 1406. He didn't want her to go. He didn't want her to go at all. She was already suspicious to begin with. She could almost guess who had sent her the message. Why did you want to go? Why? His flustered heart suddenly felt like it was being pierced by a sharp needle. This feeling made him feel suffocated and unbearable. Ding-dong. The sound of text messages came one after another as his pocket vibrated again and again. Luo Qingshun looked down, and her clear face suddenly came over to Sheng. He was a bit surprised, and she kissed him. Although it was just a soft touch, Sheng's face couldn't help revealing a faint blush. Xiaqing Ro's eyes sparkled before she cleared her throat and said, We're in public. Don't be so intimate. I'll be right back. Luo Qingshun looked into his dark as ink eyes and said with a serious look. Sheng was surprised before he nodded in a daze. Actually, he was a bit nervous at this moment. Ding, affection has increased by 10. Mission completion rate is now 80%. After leaving the room, she headed to the lobby on the first floor. Sun Yan's text was a countdown with her. As the name implied, if she didn't send her room number to him, he would really call her name. Luo Qing. Shut up. Luo Qingshun had her hands at her waist as she said while panting, What do you want to do? She couldn't understand this Sun Yan. Why did he keep following her like a ghost? Her main mission wasn't easy to complete, and there wasn't even a shadow of a side mission. How could she have the time to chat with him? You're not sick. Sun Yan was a bit surprised to see the lively Luo Qingshun. He scratched his head and said, Bing Bing called me to say that you were in the hospital, so I rushed over. His expression was very relaxed, like it wasn't a big deal for him to come here for nothing. Who? Liang Bing Bing. Sun Yan gave a shrug. You made up? Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes when she heard this, and there was a bit of uneasiness in them. After a while, as she rushed to the ward, she didn't forget to reply, Reconcile my ass. In this world, either she dies or I die. Just as she reached the corner of the stairs, she came face to face with another firm and warm chest. She touched her forehead and said sorry as she walked around the figure. Little did she know that in the next second, a gentle voice entered her ears, and she fell into a warm embrace without warning. What are you panicking for? and Yu Sheng's voice was a bit soft, feeling that he was still very weak. Luo Qingshun turned her eyes and looked at the needle with blood flowing backward. Her heart suddenly trembled. You? Why'd you come down? She blinked her eyes and looked up, only to see a face as pale as a sheet. Cough, cough. He gently shook his head. His pale lips pursed as he looked at her and said, I'm worried about you. Actually, and Yu Sheng enjoyed this feeling very much. He enjoyed Luo Qingshun's worried gaze, enjoying his weak body that was on the verge of falling unconscious. The person he liked, he wouldn't give a single second to anyone else. Whether it was Sun Yin or anyone else, there was no one in this world that could steal Luo Qingshun from his side. Unless he didn't have the slightest bit of strength to hold her. Unless he was dead. Chapter 1407. Xiaqing Ro anxiously pushed the wheelchair, aimlessly looking for an Yu Sheng. She had been very careful, but when she went to the corridor to get a pot of water, and Yu Sheng pulled out the needle and disappeared from her line of sight. Qing Ro, over here. Luo Qingshan saw Xia Qing Ro not far away and quickly waved her hand. After all, and Yu Sheng, who was holding her, seemed to be completely leaning on her with the weight of his body. His breathing was very soft, with a unique scent, as he whispered in her ear. When they returned to the room, and Yu Sheng was already unconscious. There was a lot of blood on his right hand because of the blood flow, but Luo Qingshun didn't notice it. Now that she did, she felt that the color of the blood was a bit shocking. She looked at Yu Sheng lying in bed, watching him use this extreme method to keep her in his psychological safety zone. He was so afraid of losing her, so he didn't allow himself to lose her. 39, 3 degrees Celsius. The doctor took his temperature again and said to them with an ugly expression, the nurse should have reminded you yesterday that the patient has acute pneumonia and his life will be in danger if he keeps burning like this. Xiaqing Ro and Luo Qingshun, standing on the side, quickly nodded. It's our fault. AI. The doctor prescribed 2 doses of antibiotics before saying, if there are any changes to his vital signs, call the nurse at any time. You have to let us know when the patient wakes up. As soon as his voice fell, the doctor left the room. Xiaqing Ro and Luo Qingshun looked at each other before giving helpless sighs. Luo Qingshun thought that this matter was over, but she never thought that things wouldn't go as smoothly as she imagined. Since Yu Sheng never woke up, Luo Qingshun and Xiaqing Ro took turns. They went home first to take a shower and change their clothes. Sun Yin called her, but she didn't pick up. Sun Yin called her a second time, but she didn't pick up. When the third unknown number rang, Luo Qingshun finally picked it up. Luo Qingshun, right? Sun Yin is now in my hands. If you want him to be fine, immediately come to the abandoned building beside 100 Mile Street. Zhao Jinchuan's voice came from the other end of the phone. Every word he said was filled with hatred for Luo Qingshun. Oh, she coldly replied. What does that have to do with me? Don't think that I don't dare. If you don't come, I'm not a police officer. It has nothing to do with me, whether you want to blackmail or kill the hostage. With that, she hung up the phone. On the other end of the phone, Zhao Jinxian was so angry that he threw the phone to the ground. Little sister, what's the point of kidnapping Sun Yan? Luo Qingshun doesn't care at all. Zhao Jinxian apologized. He looked at Sun Yan, who had been knocked unconscious, and said unhappily, you look like a gangster, but you don't have much skill. How dare you challenge us? Actually, kidnapping Sun Yin wasn't Zhao Jinchuan's plan at all. If it wasn't for him cursing Luo Qingshun outside the hospital and a man suddenly pounced on him, he wouldn't have made a move against a stranger. Since Luo Qingshun doesn't want to do things the hard way, we'll give her a bit of a lesson. Liang Bingbing took out a small knife from her pocket and narrowed her eyes as she walked in front of Sun Yin, directly cutting his finger. Chapter 1408. It had to be said, when Luo Qingshun saw the video, she was shaken. There were no traces of the video being edited. Sun Yin had indeed been caught, and he had been injured. As for Sun Yin, she could have completely ignored him like she said. But she was a righteous person in the end. There were some things that she could ignore, but there were some things that belonged to her. She came to the affiliated high school, and Sun Yin treated her to a meal. When he thought that she was at the hospital, he didn't care about skipping school to come find her, whether it was because of his sincerity or his desire to win. Since Zhao Jinxian had caught Sun Yin because of her, it was reasonable for her to get involved in this mess. At 5:30 in the afternoon, she called Xia Qingro and told her to take care of An Yusheng. She would change shifts with her later. The place where Zhao Jinxian had kidnapped Sun Yin wasn't far. It was just a bit remote. When she arrived at the abandoned building, it was already dark. The air was filled with the smell of rust and corrosion. The cold wind whistled past, and the surroundings were filled with an eerie and strange aura. Luo Qingshun went up to the third floor, and when she opened a door, several knives flew out in her direction. She gave a cold snort, and her clear eyes were filled with a cold look. Luo Qingshun jumped out and picked up a rotten steel pipe from the ground, throwing it in their direction. Although the light in the room was dim, she could still see Sun Yin's face. His eyes were down, and there was blood dripping from his cut finger. Zhao Jinxian on the side pulled Liang Bingbing back and ordered, "Be her to death for me. I'll take responsibility if she dies." The lackeys looked at each other before raising their knives to slash out in Luo Qingshun's direction. "You're overestimating yourself." She leaped to the left and kicked everyone who approached her in a clockwise fashion. This entire process took less than 3 seconds. Liang Bingbing was stunned. She never thought that the little punk in her eyes would have such good martial arts. In the next second, Luo Qingshun clapped her hands and threw the iron rod in Zhao Jinxuan's direction. A miserable groan sounded. Luo Qingshun's lips curled, and she hurriedly walked towards Sun Yin. "Sun Yin." She called out his name softly, but there was no response. Just as she was about to touch him to breathe, Liang Bingbing called out to her from behind. "Don't move. If you move again, I'll shoot." She held the revolver in her hand and stood 5 meters away from her. Luo Qingshun narrowed her eyes and slowly turned around. With his hands in his pockets, he looked at Liang Bingbing. Her face was a little pale. Although she was stuttering when she spoke, she didn't seem to be trembling. Luo Qingshun frowned. She felt that something was wrong, but she couldn't tell what it was. You want to kill me?" Luo Qingshun shrugged and spread out her hands. "Why don't you? Use your gun." Not to mention her ability, Liang Bingbing was a newbie. Even if she held a gun at such a close distance, it wouldn't be easy for her to hit someone. Firing a gun had a recoil, and not everyone could fire it. "Just because I won't shoot doesn't mean you can walk out of here." Liang Bingbing heard this and didn't get angry at all. Her peach blossom eyes slightly raised and her lips curled into a strange smile. Chapter 1409. There was no outsider in this world that could plot against her. Only the people she trusted could hurt her. When she opened her eyes, what entered her eyes was a high-class hotel suite. The air was filled with the faint fragrance of roses. She was tied to a large bed covered with roses. She felt that her head was a bit heavy, her breathing was a bit heavy, and her body was a bit hot. She wasn't unfamiliar with the feeling of this drug. When she was on a cruise ship, she had had a similar feeling. Damn. Luo Qingshun gritted her teeth as Sun Yin's appearance flashed in her mind. There were only 2 possibilities. First, Sun Yin had been with Liang Bingbing the entire time. This situation was easy to solve because they couldn't trap her. Second, there was a large problem with Sun Yin's personality. Gotcha. The door opened, and Sun Yin came in with a bottle of red wine. He had an evil, charming smile on his lips as he slowly walked in. "Qingshun, you really look good like this." There were still traces of red wine on his lips, but his deep eyes looked at her with deep emotions. "Tell me your goal." She bit her lip and tried to calm her breathing. "Objective." Sun Yin raised his eyebrows. The smile on his face instantly turned gloomy. He gritted his teeth and looked at Luo Qingshun as he said word for word, "I want him to die." "Why?" She knit her brows in confusion. "Don't tell me it's because you're both school hunks. Do you think I care about something like school hunks?" He came forward step by step and slowly drank the red wine in his hand. "Everything he has is built on my pain." As soon as his voice fell, Sun Yin took out a stack of photos from his pocket. There were photos of him holding her while she was unconscious. His smile became wider as he looked at her and said, I know that in you Sheng has a split personality. If he knew that you were with me, what would he become? Sun Yan. My surname isn't Su. Su is my mother's surname. At the same time, and Yu Sheng in the hospital received an envelope. He knit his brows, and when he opened the envelope, his body froze. He didn't even dare breathe at that moment. There was a suffocating feeling in his heart, and his fingertips kept trembling. Big brother Yu Sheng. Xiaqing Ro charged in and looked at him with a panicked look. What is it? What is it? Why? He looked up slightly. His bloodshot eyes misted over as he stuttered. Why doesn't she want me? How can she not want me? Brother, calm down. Xiaqing Ro wanted to put the photo away in a panic, but Yu Sheng was faster than her. He took the photo and pressed it against his chest. His face was almost completely drained of blood. His brows were furrowed, and his hands were tightly clutching his heart. Why was it so painful? It was so painful that he almost couldn't breathe. It turns out that loving someone is so painful, so painful, so painful. Xiaqing Ro gently patted his back while desperately pressing the nurse's bell. But he didn't seem to be able to hear anything. The first image that appeared in his mind was in Liang Sheng's face. The scene changed, and he saw her smiling face. D. There was a long sound from the machine, followed by Xiaqing Ro's heart-rending cries. If it wasn't for her, he wouldn't even want to live. But how could she bear to not want him? Not wanting him who loved her so much. Chapter 14:10. He didn't know how long he had been unconscious for. He just knew that Xiaqing Ro was desperately shouting in his ears. She seemed to be saying, Big brother, hold on, hold on. Qingshan is calling us. Really? Wasn't she already with someone else? Did she still remember him? Big brother, Qingshan said that she only likes you. The long mechanical voice instantly returned to normal, and the surrounding medical staff all let out a long sigh of relief. Blood oxygen levels have returned to normal. Give the patient a balanced solution and send him to the ICU. No need. And Yu Sheng, lying in the bed, slowly opened his eyes, and there was a faintly guang in them. He turned to Xiaqing Ro and said, Is she still there? Phone. Give it to me. Xiaqing Ro came back to her senses from a great shock and gave the phone to Yu Sheng. The moment he took the phone, there was Luo Qingshan's trembling voice that came from the other side. And Yu Sheng, and Yu Sheng, I'm here. And Yu Sheng, as long as you call me, I'll be here. Luo Qingshan stood on the roof with red eyes. That kind of extremely uneasy premonition, when the system gave her the notification, filled her heart. She used almost all of her strength, ignoring the blood on her wrist, to break free of the rope that bound her, and threw Sun Yan to the ground. There was a light rain that fell on her face, bringing a bit of a chill. It was like the heat in her body had been extinguished. Wait for me to come back. When Luo Qingshan said this, crystal-clear tears came from the corners of her eyes. Perhaps there were many people in this world who felt that there was a flaw in Yu Sheng's heart that was very terrifying. They couldn't even understand his self-abuse behavior. But she didn't think this. She thought that Xiaqing Ro was the same as her. She wanted to protect this kind of Yu Sheng, letting him feel safe and not being afraid of losing, letting him receive the same amount of love he gave. All right. After a long while, his cold voice slowly sounded. He asked the person on the other end of the phone, You won't abandon me, right? His voice was very soft, but she could hear it clearly. It was a pleading tone. He wanted the person he loved the most to stay by his side. Always, always by her side, by her side. I like Yu Sheng. The person I like the most in this world is Yu Sheng. She gave a soft laugh. Her voice was a bit choked up, but it did sound warm. And in Yu Sheng's heart, this was what he wanted to hear the most. There was no sound from the other end of the phone for a long time. The young man breathed gently, nodded slightly, and said with tears in his eyes, Thank you, Luo Qingshan. Thank you for saying that the person she liked the most in this world was Yu Sheng. Thanks to her, all his love was reciprocated. Everything he thought about was related to her. And Yu Sheng wasn't sent to the ICU and stayed in his original room. After the phone call, his mood improved a lot. Even a high fever that had not subsided for a long time had subsided. There were some people in this world who loved money, some people who loved power, and some people who loved beauties. And he loved Luo Qingqian's love. He longed for it, longed for it. Half an hour later, the door to the room was opened. He looked up with joy, but what he saw wasn't Luo Qingqian's face. Rather, it was Sun Yin. He had arrived at the hospital before her. The things that he couldn't obtain in this world, and Yu Sheng would never be able to obtain. Chapter 14:11. Sun Yin's mother was called Su Chongwei. She was a singer. His profession wasn't something that was exposed to the public, but his personality was pure and clean. But she never thought that she would be moved in this world and get together with Yu Sheng's father, and Yang, even getting pregnant. Little did she know that when Su Chongwei told Yang about this, he actually asked her in disbelief, "How could it be mine?" And in Yang's heart, the industry of singers wasn't clean. Since then, Su Chongwei never looked for Yang again. She also left the karaoke hall and used her years of savings to go to a small town in the countryside. After being pregnant for 10 months, she gave birth to a son who was named Nian. Nian, the thoughts hidden in her heart represented a kind of longing. This was Sun Yin's story. He had personally told Luo Qingqian and let her go. He didn't want Liang Bingbing to hurt Luo Qingqian. He just wanted the photos to hurt Yu Sheng. Based on what? Based on what? They had the same father, but he had everything when he was born. As for he had nothing. After hearing this story, you still want to steal Qingqian from me? Sun Yin softly closed the door as he played with the knife in his hand. And Yu Sheng narrowed his eyes, not doubting Sun Yin's story at all. But Luo Qingqian. It was impossible for him to let her go. Your experience isn't related to me. The one Qingqian likes is me, not you. After a while, he looked up at Sun Yin and his cool as water voice slowly sounded. Ha 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 ha. Sun Yin laughed into the sky before looking at Sun Yin with an angry look. A person who killed his big brother. You're not worthy of Luo Qingqian. You, what do you want to say? You think that a normal hoodlum would dare kill someone? Sun Yin gave a cold laugh, as his eyes didn't have a trace of warmth at all. It was you who killed my big brother. And Yu Sheng stood up like he was crazy, pulling his collar and pressing him against the wall. Sun Yin looked up and said with a hoodlum smile, "So what? What can you do to me?" He raised the knife and said in a provocative voice, "I'll give you a knife. Would you dare kill me?" Sun Yin, do you really think that I'm like what you saw in school? His dark as ink eyes had a dim glow, and his voice was ice cold without a trace of warmth. Of course I know that you don't know that kind of person. And Yu Sheng gave a shrug before continuing, but you have to know that if you kill me, you can't be with Luo Qingqian. And Yu Sheng's heart skipped a beat. He who wasn't afraid of death at first, but now he hesitated. He and the girl he had promised, they would always be together. No matter how much hatred he had Sun Yin, he couldn't kill him. He wasn't SSSA's if yes. If she stayed by his side, he would feel uneasy, but if she left with someone else, he would not be willing to accept it. And Yu Sheng, you're actually hesitating. Sun Yin's lips curled wider and wider as he said word for word with a strange laugh. Since you won't kill me, I can only kill you. See, the sharp dagger stabbed into his body without any warning. Sun Yin gritted his teeth and whispered in his ear, I don't mind dying with you, because if I can't have what we love, you can't have it either, whether it was family or love. Chapter 14:12. The bright red blood spread across the white hospital gown, and Yu Sheng tightly held his wound as he took 2 steps back. The wound was very painful, but he had to stay awake. Don't struggle. I placed a no entry sign on the other side of the corridor. Sun Yin licked the dagger covered in blood and said with a smile, no one will come in for a while. And Yu Sheng slightly knit his brows. When he was about to press the nurse's bell, Sun Yin charged forward and stabbed the dagger into the back of his hand that was pressing the bell. The sharp dagger pierced through Yu Sheng's hand. Blood dripped down drop by drop. The flesh on the back of Yu Sheng's hand was torn open, and the blood vessels could be seen all over, as well as the white bones that were exposed. His face was a bit pale, but he didn't knit his brows at all. Rather, his lips curled into a bright smile, because he had pressed the bell for the nurse. Ding-ling. There was a clear sound that rang in his ears, and it was like his starry eyes were glowing. You think that they can save you in time, Sun Yin's expression changed, and his voice became anxious. You think that you can kill me? And Yu Shang gave a soft snort. He was covered in blood, but there was no fear in his eyes at all. Then give a try. As soon as his voice fell, Sun Yin stabbed the dagger at Yu Shang again. And Yu Shang raised his right hand and grabbed his wrist, stabbing the dagger into his shoulder. The pain hit him instantly, but his eyes were unprecedentedly clear. Sun Yin never thought that Yu Shang would do this. He actually stabbed the dagger into his own body. But Yu Shang was very clear that he only had one goal in doing this. He couldn't be stabbed in the vitals. He had to live. He had to live. And Yu Shang, go and die. Sun Yin pulled out the dagger and wildly stabbed it at Yu Shang's neck. At the same time, the door to the ward was opened and Luo Qingxun, who had just arrived, came in. At this moment, it was as if time had completely stopped for her. There was blood spurting out of his neck, and that picturesque youth was standing in front of her covered in blood. His gaze was firm, but it softened the moment he saw her eyes. In the past, in order to obtain her, he did not hesitate to hurt himself to attract her attention and concern. But now, in order to accompany her, he used all his willpower to grit his teeth and not let himself die. How could he die? What if no one treated her well after he died? What if he got jealous when someone treated her well after he died? Initially, he didn't want to live in such a cold world. But if she existed in this world, then he would do everything in his power to make himself stay. And Yu Shang, she called out his name as she charged over to tightly hug him covered in blood. At this moment, his heart was trembling nonstop. She was scared, very scared. Tears fell from her eyes, dripping into his blood, carrying with them all her emotions. Don't cry. His right hand was still covering the small artery that had been cut open. His breathing was heavy, and his eyes were no longer focused. But he still said clearly in her ear, I won't die because I won't give you to anyone. Chapter 14:13. The patient is already in deep shock. His blood pressure and oxygen levels are dropping. I can't feel the light anymore, but his heart is still beating strong. Adrenaline is being pumped in and out. There were many people in the hospital, and there were all kinds of noises. There was no one beside her. There was only Xia Qingro. Xia Qingro softly patted her back and kept whispering in her ear, It's fine, it'll be fine. But she thought of Sun Yin's face of despair and in Yu Shang's peaceful smile when he closed his eyes. Sometimes she couldn't help thinking that if she didn't appear, this matter would have reached this point. A pair of half-brothers. One was imprisoned for murder, and the other was on the operating table, about to lose his life at any moment. But Luo Qingxun knew that even if she didn't appear, the result would be the same. It was possible that it would be worse. It had to be said, whether it was in Yang or Sun Yin or in Yu Shang, there was a large obstacle in terms of personality. Their thoughts were different from normal people's. They started in an extreme way and ended in an extreme way. Sitting in the corridor of the operating room, she watched as the medical staff came in and out. She did not even dare to breathe loudly. Her clear eyes flickered along with the lights in the emergency room, until the moment it dimmed forever. The doctor came out with a serious look on his face. Before she could come forward, and Yu's parents wildly rushed forward to grab the doctor's hand. The patient's life is out of danger for now, but how long he'll be in shock and whether he can wake up or not will depend on his luck. As soon as his voice fell, there was a hoarse cry. Don't be too pessimistic. The doctor saw that Mrs. and could hardly stand and collapsed on the ground, and then said, After all, the patient's will to survive is very tenacious. I have practiced medicine for so many years, but I have never seen anyone who can come back after losing more than 2,000 cubic centimeters of blood. Normally speaking, normal people would go into shock after losing over 1,000 cc of blood. And Yu Shang was a miracle. Madamon's face of despair seemed to have a faint glow. In the next second, that face became abnormally fierce. She punched and kicked Yang, who was already in tears, as if she had gone mad. She cried as she hit him, It's all because of you, all because of you. That crazy person has already killed one of our sons, and now she wants to kill the second one. And Yang, who had dominated the business circle, was filled with regret at this moment. He could only apologize and beg for forgiveness. What kind of person is that singer? How could she be so cruel? A singer is a singer. It's too cheap. Mrs. and cried and said. When she said the last sentence, there was almost no voice. Most of the onlookers could hear her unpleasant curses. Some agreed with her, while others despised her. But who could truly understand her pain? The pain of losing her 2 sons, the pain of having to send off her children. Luo Qingshun, who was sitting not far away, did not cry. She bit her lip and looked at Xia Qingro beside her, softly saying, "Thank you. Thank you for never blaming me. Thank you for always being with me." Xia Qingro was the best girl she had ever seen in this world. She was a bit surprised before saying in a daze, "No need to thank me. Because you're the girl Big Brother likes. I know you're more anxious than me." Chapter 14:14. The next morning, Luo Qingshun went to school as usual. After this matter, there were some people who really couldn't be left alive. Xia Qingro was not at ease and wanted to go with her, but she calmly said, "One of us has to stay here for me to be at ease." She was surprised, never thinking that Luo Qingshun would say this. She thought that in her heart, even if she wasn't a love rival, she definitely wouldn't be a good friend. "Relax, I'll call you if anything happens to Big Brother." Xia Qingro nodded, speaking in a firm voice. It was like a promise, like a guarantee. Without knowing when it started, she stopped calling in Yusheng Big Brother Yusheng and directly called him Big Brother. Perhaps to her, since the day in Yusheng found someone he liked, she would forever be his little sister. 8 in the morning at the affiliated high school. She was wearing the school's new uniform, a red and black checker jacket with a white sweater inside. She had a black bag and no makeup on, giving off a youthful aura. As soon as she walked through the school gate, there were people pointing at her in 2s and 3s. Most of them were saying bad things about her. "Look, that's the transfer student Bing Bing told us about yesterday. She hurt the 2 school hunks so badly. How could she still have the face to come to school? That's right. She really is a scum of youth. So what if she looks good? She has a heart like a snake. Who knows what kind of bewitching potion she gave the 2 school hunks? They almost lost their lives." When those unpleasant words entered her ears, she didn't feel anything at all. This was the thinking between gods and mortals. Those humans who only knew rumors. What kind of intelligence did they have? Luo Qingshun didn't return to Class 7. Rather, she went to Class 1. Of course, she did 2 things before going. One was to use Mr. L's position in the business circle to make the headlines of the morning news waiting for her. 2. She used Mr. L's identity to call the principal. She had to make him appear when he should. Otherwise, it was hard to say if the affiliated high school would still exist on this land. After all, the affiliated high school belonged to the Golden Triangle, which meant that it belonged to her as the big boss behind the scenes. "Yo, Sister Bing Bing, look who's here." One of Liang Bing Bing's lackeys, who was wearing a bright red coat and had deliberately shortened her school skirt, was the first to see her. Liang Bing Bing turned around, and her pair of peach blossom eyes instantly fell on Luo Qingshun with a victorious attitude. Now that she didn't have Sun Yin or in Yusheng's protection, she should be a little girl who had nothing. Don't think that you are a pure student just because you entered the affiliated high school. Dream on. A delinquent girl will always be a delinquent girl. She will never be able to become a phoenix. As long as she cut off all the branches, even if she could become the princess in her Prince Charming's heart, she would become a phoenix. Without the branch, even if she could fly up, she would fall down with her body, smashed into pieces. "Get out, you little delinquent." One of the girls sitting in the first row picked up a book and threw it at her. Luo Qingshun caught it easily with her right hand. She sneered, "Is this your attitude towards life, to rely on others to tell you the truth?" Her voice was very soft and had a bit of disdain, but she didn't hurt this girl, because she could tell that she was only listening to Liang Bing Bing's words. She should be in Yu Sheng's little fan. Chapter 14:15. Liang Bing Bing's words instantly caused an uproar among the onlookers. "Bing Bing, we support you. This girl must be the delinquent girl Bing Bing mentioned. How could someone with this status be with our school hunkin'? That's right, it really is a prince and a commoner. It really makes people feel disgusted. Isn't that so?" She's not embarrassed to come to class 1. I don't know who gave her the courage. Is it Liang Jingru? Commoner? Luo Qingxun narrowed her cold eyes, and her lips curled into a cold arc. She narrowed her eyes as she looked at Liang Bingbing. Then let this commoner ask you to scram. Her voice wasn't soft or heavy, but it was powerful. These words were inexplicable in the eyes of the crowd, but they caused Liang Bingbing to tremble all over. You're asking me to scram? 3 seconds later, Liang Bingbing came back to her senses. She looked at her with a sharp laugh. It can't be that your brain is broken, right? You want me to scram? Her lips were crooked and her voice was filled with ridicule. Not to mention that Luo Qingxun was just a delinquent girl. Even if it was in Yusheng today, he wasn't qualified to say this to her. Luo Qingxun, was just a delinquent girl who had nothing. What right did she have? Liang Bingbing, it seems like you won't cry until you see the coffin. Luo Qingxun gave a shrug. Her clear eyes became incomparably deep, and there was an aura that was different from normal people as she walked towards her step by step. What do you want to do? Liang Bingbing nervously swallowed a mouthful of saliva and couldn't help moving back. Don't come over. Our Bingbing is weak and I've trained. I definitely won't let you off if you bully her. The little follower in the red coat had an arrogant look, not showing any fear at all. After all, the girl in front of her looked very weak. She wasn't her match at all. She was a third-degree yellow belt Taekwondo practitioner. But Liang Bingbing's expression was completely different. She had seen Luo Qingxun fight before, and it was like Zhao Jinxian said, even if there were 100 of her, she couldn't beat a single Luo Qingxun. Now you know fear. Why were you so arrogant before? Don't do anything rash. I too will call the police. Do you think I'll give you a chance? Don't you know that after spending so much time with people with personality disorders, mutual destruction seems to be a major event in life? She stood beside Liang Bingbing's desk and pushed it with her left hand. The desk crashed into the wall, and the entire desk was smashed into smithereens. Everyone in the class sucked in a breath of cold air and looked at Luo Qingxun in disbelief. The few people who had been bad-mouthing her earlier all shrunk their necks, deeply afraid that they would be implicated. Liang Bingbing even staggered back and almost fell to the ground. Don't come over. This is a lawful society. Even if you're a young lady, even if you haven't received any higher education, you still have to understand the law. Liang Bingbing was a little scared when she saw Luo Qingxun's eyes. She was afraid that a casual move from her could take her life. The girl in the red coat who was standing next to her had long hidden far away. The so-called friendship that was stronger than gold in their words was so fragile. Wait a minute. Just as Liang Bingbing covered her head and closed her eyes in fear, the principal's deep voice sounded from the door. He was panting heavily and his forehead was dotted with sweat. It was obvious that he had rushed over immediately after receiving Luo Qingxun's timed email. Chapter 14:16. When the principal saw this email, he wasn't unhappy at all. Instead, he was very happy. Earlier, it was said that Mr. L wanted to build a huge shopping mall in the Golden Triangle area, but the affiliated high school was also included in it. According to the land division system, the owner of the land had the right to demolish the school. After all, the owner of the land had the most power. Since the government put this area up for auction, it proved that Luo Qingxun razing the affiliated high school to the ground was within their expectations. However, in this expectation, there was a sudden turn for the better. The moment the principal appeared, the most excited person in the entire class was Liang Bingbing. This was like a drowning person who suddenly pulled a life-saving straw into the water. She wanted to live so much that she almost ignored her image and rushed towards the principal. Principal, look at this little delinquent girl. She actually came to our class to behave atrociously. Aren't you going to expel her? All right, look at that table over there. If I didn't dodge fast enough, I would have ended up like her. This person's existence is the biggest threat to the safety of outstanding students like us. She was very angry when she spoke. Every word was like a gem, as if Luo Qingxun had committed a big crime, and she was the pillar of the country. I mean, principal, you can't underestimate this kind of bad person. Expel her. The school must expel her. Liang Bingbing interrupted the principal again. She screamed out Luo Qingqian's evil deeds as much as possible. Student Liang Bingbing. The principal roared very angrily. He looked at her very seriously and said, "Go and pack your things and leave the school immediately." Originally, he felt a little sorry for Liang Bingbing, but now he didn't feel sorry at all. This student who only knew how to accuse others was a complete disgrace to the affiliated high school. "Yes, let her leave the school," Liang Bingbing roared. It seemed that she had lost her mind. She looked at Luo Qingqian angrily. "I want you to leave the school." The principal's simple and honest voice resounded throughout the classroom. Everyone held their breath and stared at Liang Bingbing. They didn't dare to make a sound, because this scene was just too awkward. Liang Bingbing thought that the principal was here to save her, but little did she know that the principal was here to chase her away. "Principal, what did you say?" She turned her head and her eyes widened in disbelief. "I think I've made myself very clear." The principal angrily threw a stack of photocopied documents onto the podium. This stack of documents was attached to the email sent by Luo Qingqian. It contained all the evil deeds that Liang Bingbing had done. Liang Bingbing glanced at it. It actually contained Sun Yin's accusation that she was involved in the kidnapping. "Principal, how can you let me leave the school just because of this one-sided story?" "That's true." The principal cleared his throat and continued. "The Board of Governors of the affiliated high school officially announces that due to Liang Bingbing's involvement in the kidnapping, Gu will expel her from the school forever." At this moment, the onlookers who had been bad-mouthing Luo Qingqian looked at Liang Bingbing with disdain. "What are you looking at? You believe everything he says. Who doesn't know if this little delinquent slept with the principal who can't differentiate between right and wrong?" Slap. A crisp slap landed on Liang Bingbing's face. Chapter 14-17. See, everyone took a cold breath, like they were watching a harem drama of the affiliated high school. Liang Bingbing covered her red face, and her eyes were a bit red as tears came out. She bit her lips hard and said, "You dare to hit me. As a teacher, you shouldn't have done this." The principal gave a bow to everyone in the class before turning to Liang Bingbing. "But for a junior like you who doesn't respect her elders, this slap is considered light." At that moment, there were some students who didn't think it was reasonable. Luo Qingqian put her hands in her pocket, and when she passed by the angry Liang Bingbing, she said in a soft voice, "You can't beat me." She took a few steps before Liang Bingbing's response came from behind her. "Luo Qingqian, just you wait. I definitely won't let you go." It was unknown if it was because she was too angry that she stopped being afraid, or if it was because the principal was here, Luo Qingqian couldn't do something like killing someone. When she said this, she was filled with anger and unwillingness. The shame that she, Liang Bingbing, suffered today, she would definitely take it back in the future. After Liang Bingbing's matter was taken care of, she wanted to find Zhao Jinxian since this man really was an eyesore to her. But she never thought that Zhao Jinxian would already be caught. After Sun Yin was taken away by the police for intentionally injuring someone, he had completely exposed Zhao Jinxian's deeds. Robbery, prostitution, drug trafficking, arson. These evil deeds, Zhao Jinxian could be said to have committed all kinds of evil deeds. It was clear that people who opened bars were more social, but after this layer of society was exposed, there were more and more bad things that came out. Zhao Jinxian cursed Sun Yin as soon as he arrived at the detention center. "You're not righteous. Father will be the first to kill you if I go in." Sun Yin gave a shrug as he still had that evil, charming smile on his lips. He couldn't kill in Yusheng, which meant that he was useless or that person's life wasn't meant to end. However, this did not mean that he could still put Luo Qingqian in danger. Liang Bingbing was not a person to be feared. Without Zhao Jinxian, she could not pose any threat to Luo Qingqian. Then, as long as Zhao Jinxian was put in jail, he could protect her. In fact, in Sun Yin's heart, he felt sorry for Luo Qingqian. Perhaps he felt sorry for her more than he liked her. After all, the deep hatred between him and the Yin family had nothing to do with Luo Qingqian. She couldn't put her in danger because she liked Yusheng. After Luo Qingqian learned of this matter, She went to the detention center and spent some money to see Yusheng. He looked a little tired, probably because he hadn't shaved his beard for a long time, and his clothes were a little untidy. But the moment he opened his mouth, he seemed to be in high spirits. "I never thought that you would come to see me." Sun Yin looked at Luo Qingchen and spread his hands. "Do you have a cigarette?" Luo Qingchen's expression was very calm as she took out a pack of cigarettes and a lighter for him. He looked at the brand, and his lips curled into a beautiful curve. "Does he like this brand?" "He doesn't smoke." "I like this brand." Sun Yin took a deep puff before saying with a smile, "It's just too choking." Chapter 14:18. Luo Qingchen heard this and wasn't surprised by Sun Yin's question at all. She put her hands in her pocket as she sat in front of him and calmly replied, "He won't die." "You're quite optimistic." Sun Yin's expression was a bit desperate. He took another deep puff before looking at her and saying, "I cut an artery." "An artery on the neck. How could he live?" "As long as it took 10 seconds, he would go into shock." In medicine, if a large artery was accidentally cut during surgery, it was possible to lose one's life, not to mention, "You think that if he died, I would still come see you?" Luo Qingchen's calm voice had a bit of coldness to it. She indeed didn't hate Sun Yin, but for him to hurt Yusheng like this, she really couldn't like it. "Uh-huh." He was a bit surprised before he said with a laugh of self-ridicule, That's right, that's right." In the end, he had spent a lifetime in prison and possibly his life, but he couldn't die with the person he hated the most in this world. He had no grudge with Yusheng, but his hatred was deep. "Since he's still alive, why did you come looking for me instead of staying by his side? You sent Zhao Jinxian in, right? You're here to thank me?" He looked at her eyes and felt a bit sad, which was a bit funny. "Thank you." She sincerely thanked him, but there wasn't any emotion in her words. "No need." Sun Yin gave a chuckle and shook the cigarette box in his hand. "We're even. There is no grudge between you and me." Luo Qingchen slowly stood up and said in an ice-cold voice, "The one who owes you in this world is in Yang. It has never been in Yusheng. If in Yusheng died this time, and I wasn't caught, I would definitely kill in Yang." He looked at her with a fierce look in his eyes. But Luo Qingchen said with a faint smile, "No, you wouldn't." He was stunned and didn't say anything. He just looked at Luo Qingchen with some surprise in his eyes, as if a little secret in his heart had been discovered. "You have never thought of taking revenge on Yang, even though you know very well that he is the one you should take revenge on. Don't say any more." Sun Yin was a little agitated and directly interrupted her. "Because all along, what you wanted was to obtain his love, not to destroy him." "I told you to stop talking." Sun Yin slammed the table like a madman when he heard her words. He raised his voice and looked at her sadly. "You won't understand that feeling. You will never understand." He grew up in ridicule. Without a father, it was as if he didn't have a shoulder to shelter him from the wind and rain. He just wanted a shoulder. If Yang only had one son left in this world, would he give him a second look? If you weren't so extreme, perhaps you would have one more father and one more brother. She paused and continued, "No, too." These are the last words she said to him in jail. She hoped that they would never meet again. Ding! Affection has decreased by 100%. Mission completion rate is now 0%. Dingling. At this moment, she only felt her heart thumping, and there was an indescribable feeling of suffocation. The rapid ringing of her phone filled her mind again and again. Her body trembled as she picked up Xia Qingrou's call. "Hello, Qingchen." Xia Qingrou excitedly said from the other side. "Big brother is awake." Chapter 14:19. She took a taxi and headed back to the hospital. There was snow in the sky, and the goose feather-like snowflakes fell down one by one. Her eyes couldn't help turning red. She looked up slightly and didn't let her tears fall down. The driver was an uncle who was around 40 years old. He looked at her in the mirror and slowly said in the voice of an elder, "Little sister, did you not do well on the exam?" Her eyebrows trembled as she shook her head. "Then you're being naughty and being nagged by your parents?" She lowered her head and shook it again. The driver uncle looked at her like he suddenly realized something and said with a look of understanding, "Then you quarreled with your boyfriend?" "Wah, ah." Luo Qingchen couldn't help crying as she broke out in tears. The tears that she held back were like pearls that had been cut off, falling down drop by drop. The driver uncle was surprised before anxiously saying, "Little sister, don't cry. You're still young. The best is still on the way. Don't be anxious." "But I like him." The snow outside the window fell onto her face, and it was a bone-chilling cold. In this small space, she could hear the driver uncle's deep voice. She seemed to be able to let go of all her strength and cry like a child. "And you shung, and you shung, and you shung." These words kept repeating in her mind, that youth who didn't care about the cycle of life and death just to stay by her side. How could he forget? It was the agreed love test. They had passed all the difficult questions to get full marks. How could he change the test paper just like that? "Aya, I say, why are you this stubborn little girl?" The driver uncle said in a serious voice, "There are millions of men in the world. You can change them every day if you don't like them. Look at this, uncle. I've been changed 7 to 8 times. Why change?" He took a breath before continuing, "Because I'm poor." Why? After hearing the driver uncle's explanation, she cried even harder. In this impetuous world, she and Yu Sheng were like a clear stream. Their love was that pure. But she couldn't love him. When they arrived at their destination, the driver uncle didn't take her money. Instead, he handed her a tissue and said seriously, "What I said just now was nonsense. You're so cute. You definitely won't be replaced. Stop talking." She took the tissue and sniffed. She wiped the tears from the corner of her eyes and continued, "You don't know how to comfort people at all." As she spoke, she still stuffed the money into his hand because she had already seen the family photo of him, his wife, and his son in front of the car window. He didn't mention the ending of some stories, but that didn't mean it wasn't good. She took the elevator to the 4th floor. Xiaqing Ro was waiting for her in the corridor, her expression ugly. She winked at her and said softly, "Don't worry, I know." "You know?" Xiaqing Ro looked at her in disbelief. Her eyes were red, and her voice was slightly nasal. Although she didn't know how she knew these things, she could tell from her expression that she knew. "The doctor said that my brother still has the ability to live a normal life, but as for people, he doesn't remember them." Xiaqing gently held her hand and said, "But the doctor said that brother's original mental problems have also improved. She probably forgot about big brother Liangsheng and no longer has a personality disorder." Chapter 14:20. And Yu Sheng was holding a fashion magazine in his hand, looking like he had recovered quite well. His face was still a bit pale, but he didn't look tired. "Big brother." Xiaqing Rose softly called out to him. He was a little stunned. After 2 or 3 seconds, he slowly raised his head and looked at him with a faint smile on his face. "This is Big Brother's past classmate," Luo Qingshun said, the moment Xiaqing Ro was about to say it. "Hello." He gave a slight nod. There was a bit of gentleness in his bright eyes, but there was also a sense of unfamiliarity. At that moment, Luo Qingshun felt her heart skip a beat, and there was an indescribable sadness. Those eyes that had been burning not long ago had suddenly become very unfamiliar. This kind of unfamiliarity made her not dare look into his eyes. Every time she looked, she felt like she was suffocating. But at this moment, she had to wear a smile. She looked at him and said, "Do you feel better?" Her voice was relaxed, but her hands were tightly clenched in her pocket. Xiaqing Ro, standing on the side, slightly knit her brows, and she couldn't help tearing up at that moment. She seemed to be a bystander who understood their love the most. That kind of sadness and sadness. There was no one who understood it better than her. And Yu Sheng politely put down the magazine in his hand and looked in her clear eyes. "Your eyes really are beautiful." Such a familiar look. It was like not long ago, there was a moment when he was deeply infatuated with this kind of look. "You've said this before." She leaned over and looked into his delicate eyes as her lips curled slightly. "And Yu Sheng, I am Luo Qingchen." The sunlight slowly came in through the window, and there were feather-like snowflakes that slowly fell down. The young man and girl looked at each other with smiles. In the eyes of outsiders, this was the best appearance of youth. With a kacha sound, the door opened. What entered her eyes was someone Luo Qingchen never would have thought of, Liang Bingbing, as well as his parents. Behind them were Mr. and Mrs. and Liang Bingbing glanced at her, her eyes filled with pride. She looked up to say something in her father Liang Jiwei's ear, and Liang Jiwei gave a thoughtful nod. Then, in the next second, Liang Bingbing charged forward and pushed Luo Qingchen away before falling into Yu Sheng's embrace. "Ah Sheng, you really scared us to death." And Yu Sheng's brows tightly knit. He wanted to push her away, but because he was unfamiliar with this world, he stopped. He unconsciously looked at Luo Qingchen, standing on the side, and there's a complicated look in his eyes. "Bingbing, uncle and auntie, why are you so rude?" Liang Zhuwei chuckled as he turned around and said to Enyang, "You've been spoiled rotten by me. You don't have any manners." Enyang quickly shook his head and said, "Brother Liang, you're being too polite. We're going to be a family in the future." "What are you talking about?" And Yu Sheng's memory loss was great news for the Un and Liang families. After all, it was impossible for him to accept this marriage before. But now his life was blank. It was like starting from the beginning. Then the story that belonged to him. He could make it up with his mouth. Chapter 14:21. Fiancé. And Yu Sheng slightly pursed his lips as a sparkle appeared in his beautiful eyes. She unconsciously leaned back and looked down. "Hello, I'm a bit uncomfortable." "Bingbing, why aren't you getting off, Ah Sheng?" Liang Jiwei looked at her with a frown. "Isn't a girl embarrassed?" "Aya, I'm too excited." She reluctantly got off in Yu Sheng and looked at Luo Qingchen before looking at Yu Sheng with an aggrieved look. "Ah Sheng, I'm sorry. I made you feel uncomfortable." Although her face looked aggrieved, her heart was filled with excitement at this moment. There was finally a day when she was the dazzling female lead standing in front of Luo Qingchen, looking at her with proud eyes. It was like she was saying, "You little punk, why don't you take a look at yourself? You want to steal Yu Sheng from me? Dream on. Big brother has just recovered. It's better not to shake him." Xiaqing Ro pursed her lips and slowly came forward. She took Luo Qingchen's hand and brought her to her side. Xiaqing Ro's impression of Liang Bingbing wasn't good. What kind of character this girl had, others didn't know, but she was clear on it. "So it's classmate Xia." Liang Bingbing saw how close she was to Luo Qingchen and couldn't help taunting her. "I never thought that you would have such a good relationship with this little punk." "Punk?" Madame knit her brows as she looked at Luo Qingchen with a strange gaze. This was the gaze of an elder can't stand. "Auntie, Qingchen is my friend." Xiaqing Ro seriously said word for word. "Her parents aren't here anymore, so her family isn't that good." "Che!" Liang Bingbing gave a soft snort. "Is she a mule or a horse? Doesn't she know in her heart?" Liang Bingbing's voice was filled with ridicule since Luo Qingchen had bullied her so miserably before. Not only didn't Yu Sheng forget her, she also had the support of her elders. Let's see how arrogant Luo Qingchen can be. Luo Qingchen took a deep breath. Her eyebrows trembled slightly. Liang Bingbing was right. Every girl wanted to perform well in front of the parents of the person they liked. She was the same. However, she was born with an unyielding personality, so she still nodded her head and looked at Liang Bingbing with an indifferent and arrogant expression. The great philosopher Maslow once said, "A cultured person will understand when you point it out. An uncultured person will be aggressive if you don't lose your temper." Luo Qingchen said these words with great depth, almost effortlessly. There was not the slightest flaw in quoting the words of great foreign philosophers. By doing this, she could not only prevent Liang Bingbing from gaining the upper hand, but she could also easily remove the title of delinquent. After all, how could a delinquent girl quote a great philosopher? When Luo Qingchen looked at Mrs. and again, the look on her face was obviously different. However, Liang Bingbing was different. Her originally proud face instantly darkened. She wanted to say some ugly words, but she couldn't say a single word. After all, Luo Qingchen's sarcastic words from before had come before. At this moment, no matter what she said, she felt that her words had come true and she had become an uncultured person. Chapter 14:22. And Yu Sheng recovered very quickly. Other than his memories, everything else went very smoothly. Luo Qingchen spent most of her time sitting in the coffee shop downstairs, ordering a cup of cappuccino. She took out her laptop and used the name Mr. L to invest in a large amount of real estate on the internet. She didn't go to school. She had already chosen to give up on the side mission. After all, to be exact, her main mission was currently a 0% completion rate. Moreover, it was a bit troublesome. The most troublesome reason was that she didn't know where to start when faced with the blank in Yusheng. Ding-ling. There was the sound of a text message that came from Xia Qingro. Qingshun, quickly come up. Xia Qingro. Receiving the call from Xia Qingro, she knew that Liang Bingbing's group was no longer in the room. It wasn't that she was afraid of them. Rather, she hadn't finished with those kinds of people. As for the Liang family's ending, she had already written it down for them in her notebook. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. If people offend me, I'll hit the snake by 3 inches and hit its vitals. Walking in the long hallway of the hospital, she couldn't help thinking. If nothing happened to An Yusheng, they should be about to get married right now. After all, with An Yusheng's stubborn personality, he would have ignored the opposition of his family and made her his bride. Qingshun. When she came in, Xia Qingro waved her hand at her. Over here. And Yusheng and Xia Qingro sat on the bed with their legs crossed. There were pieces of white A4 paper in front of them. Luo Qingshun knit her brows in confusion as she asked, "What are you doing?" "Pi drama," Xia Qingro said with an excited look. "I sent a voice message on the internet, and they said that I was suited for voice acting. They directly gave me $1,000 and took my voice." "That powerful," she said with a surprised smile. "Our Qingro is so good, but I don't seem to understand the voice acting industry." "It's fine, I'll teach you." And Yusheng looked at her with a polite and gentlemanly smile, which filled her heart with complicated emotions. A bit cold and a bit warm. "Oomph, big brother is so cocky." Xia Qingro gave a light snort and pretended to be proud as she said, "I was the one who taught you all of this. Don't expose me." "Poochie," she smiled and said, "All right, I won't expose you." In the next second, she handed a piece of white A4 paper to Luo Qingshun and said, Qingshun will be paired with Ling Meng. Brother will be paired with Shifeng. I will be paired with Ling Meng's sister, spiritual sacrifice. Shifeng, you can't catch me." Luo Qingshun was surprised, being deeply attracted by An Yusheng's serious voice acting. His voice had the feeling of a floating dream, ethereal, but with a particularly clean tone. "Ling Meng, what do we know if we can catch it without trying?" However, her dubbing was a little shaky. "Shifeng, I've already killed enough people. I'm not afraid of one more." "Shifeng, in the name of faith, in exchange for 18 years of peace and prosperity, brushing past life and death, bearing righteousness on my shoulders. Ling Meng, how lucky am I to be able to look back and see the spring scenery you brought. Like the light in a hopeless situation, like a dream that doesn't want to wake up. Ling's sacrifice. Everything will start from the beginning." The scene ended, and Yusheng's eyes kept sparkling, and after a few seconds, he said something that she never expected. "We shouldn't have just been classmates before.